Hello everyone. Today, a very interesting story awaits you. And before it starts, I would like to ask you to like this video and subscribe to the channel. This story begins with the fact that the main character came to his senses and did not understand where he was. The last thing he remembered was being sucked into a cosmic vortex. He suspected that he was now heading to another dimension. It seemed like it was really true. No matter what they say about him, the young man will still become a martial arts master, and he will have many beautiful fans. Having fallen onto the roof of a house at high speed, the young man noted that he did not expect that this could happen to an orphan from the 20th century named Qian Xiaofan. Looking around, he screamed to be taken back. After all, this house seemed to belong to a person without a fixed place of residence who was destined to die. But since he can't do anything about it, he'll just have to enjoy what he has. The night is long, so it's better to look around. But then he thought that he could do it later, and now just go to bed. After some time, he heard some noise on the street and decided to go see what was happening there. Seeing a girl and a young man soaring in the sky, our hero noted that there are cultivators in this world. The stranger was very beautiful. Xiaofan had read about them in works in his previous life, but did not expect to ever see them in person. He was already convinced that it was not in vain that he got there. It all looked very cool because they were flying on their swords. The man thanked everyone for their greeting and said that they were here to recruit cultivators for their school, but they must have talent. If anyone who wishes can climb 3 steps up this stone staircase, then this person will be able to study in their institution. One of those present immediately expressed a desire to try and said that it should be as easy as shelling pears. Let everyone look at him. But he fell sharply, not having time to really take a step, since his body absolutely did not obey him. The young man did not understand what was happening. Qian wondered what was so difficult about it. Weren't they just stone steps? Why does this all seem so difficult? On par with climbing a mountain of swords or crossing seas of fire? He wasn't sure he could do it. Next, the son of the village headman decided to try his luck and his abilities. Having easily reached the middle, the young man said that this was his limit. He can't go any further. The cultivator noted that he did not expect that there would be such a talented person there, because the ability to rise to the 6th stage is already considered incredible. Then the young man shouted that this young man was suitable for them. His talent is good, so let him follow them to the CYN sect. Then the cultivator asked if anyone else wanted to try, but people thought that they couldn't and that it was better not to even try. When the man realized that no one else had expressed a desire to try his luck, he said that the recruitment was over and was about to fly away. But suddenly our hero appeared, raised his hand and said that he wanted to do it. Those present immediately began to mock and say that it seemed that someone did not know their place. Does this rogue really want to join the CZYN sect? Our hero began to slowly climb the stairs and noted that it turned out to be much easier than he thought. But suddenly, as if an invisible force began to sharply pull him down, and he fell on his back. The son of the village head immediately began to laugh at him and ask whether such a scum of society like him had also decided to engage in cultivation. The girl noted that there was no one else suitable, so you can already go back and not waste time. But Xiao Fan knew how to attract their attention. Therefore, he took out a book and said that he had a rare collection of knowledge of ancient sages. The young man would like to give it to the cultivator in exchange for his recognition. The man replied that their sect had recently lost the mountain guards. Then he asked if the guy wanted to become one. Our hero exclaimed that, of course, it would be a great honor for him. I thought to myself that I knew that his plan would work. Then the guys said goodbye to the villagers and went to the Xi'an grid. On the way, the son of the village head asked how this dirty beggar ended up with them. The cultivator replied that Qian Xiaofan became their brother's disciple, specifically in order to get into the Qian sect. Our hero thought to himself that now he is very cool, but it was still a pity to part with that collection. Then the guy felt that he suddenly began to feel sick from being sick during the flight. His escort immediately shouted to his sister to move on, and the man, meanwhile, would take Xiaofan to rest a little and then they would catch up with her. When they landed, the young man immediately ran to the cliff because he was about to throw up, and the cultivator said that Xi'an is very smart, but sometimes this is more of a curse than a blessing. There are things that can be known and there are those that cannot. If someone finds out that a man reads such books, then his authority will be destroyed. Therefore, Xiao Fan cannot be left alive. Then he kicked our hero and he flew down. After some time, the young man opened his eyes and noted that everything hurt terribly. He almost succeeded in achieving his goal, but this handsome guy ruined everything, so he will certainly kill him when he finds him. Looking around, the guy didn't understand where he was, but then he saw some old man meditating under a tree. The young man decided that this place was somehow strange, so he needed to get out of there as soon as possible. But suddenly, the man said that he had been waiting for this day for a very long time. He is an ancient monk and has sat under this tree for about 18,000 years, waiting for the right person to whom he can transmit the Buddhist scripture. Our hero objected that he was still too young to become a monk. The old man replied that Buddha once said that the universe is the progenitor of all things in the world, so you cannot escape fate. Then he said that he had one exclusive secret book and began to take out a collection with the inscription, 15-year-old nuns. The young man thought that something was obviously wrong with his head and he needed to run away as soon as possible. The monk realized that he had gotten the wrong thing and, blushing, said that it was just a misunderstanding that had happened. After which, he began to spread his spiritual energy to the young man. It all looked like magic. The man said that he wanted to become righteous in this endless world. You need to give up your status as a monk and comprehend the true path. As a gift, he will follow the human world in order to deal with evil spirits. After these words, only a handful of ashes remained from the man, and he disappeared. Xiao Fan was lucky enough to see the last journey of the monk, and of course, he will continue his work. The guy began to bow and express his respect. Then he picked up a stone from the ground and, throwing it, thought about what kind of treasure the master had left him. Slightly clenching his hand into a fist, it turned out that the stone simply crumbled like a breadcrumb. Our hero was very surprised. With such incredible strength, the young man will be able to reach simply unprecedented heights. A picture immediately appeared in his head of him sitting on a throne, surrounded by beautiful concubines. After which, I sat down under a tree in the lotus position and decided that I first needed to comprehend this power and figure out what was what. Suddenly, he began to feel a wonderful aroma that came from the flower. Jian remembered that he had not eaten all day and was very hungry, but eating the flower was too much for him. But then he suddenly sat down and began to stuff himself with this plant, saying that it was very tasty. You should definitely take some more with you for later. It was surprising, but he felt a huge surge of strength and his body was full of energy. After which, he took just one step and instantly found himself in the air at a high altitude. Our hero did not understand how this happened. A couple of days later, the guy gradually learned to cope with his abilities and decided that it was time to move on. Meanwhile, two men pestered some girl and insisted that she needed to go have a drink with them because there was absolutely nowhere to rush. She timidly replied that this was inappropriate because she did not know them. Seeing this, our hero noted that he had just descended from the mountain and could already become a superhero for this little girl. At least Xiao Fan would still be able to use them as a punching bag. But suddenly the girl got tired of listening to these insolent people and she attacked them. Having scattered them in different directions, the stranger noted that they looked very strong, so she had no choice but to beat them. After seeing the picture, our hero decided that he didn't need to get involved with her for 300 years, so he needed to get away as soon as possible. But the girl noticed him and grabbed him by the shoulder and asked where he was going. Let him answer whether he was in league with those guys or not. The young man replied that it was not his fault. He was just passing by and was generally going to help her. The stranger replied that if this was the case, then okay, she wouldn't touch him. Then she exclaimed that she needed to hurry to Huan Tianmen and said goodbye. Our hero noted to himself that she was very beautiful and said that by pure chance he also needed to go there. So wouldn't the girl want to go along? Suddenly, the girl exclaimed in surprise that he had an immortal spiritual root. The guy didn't understand what she was talking about this grass or something. The stranger replied that this was not a herb at all, but a medicinal plant which was incredibly rare and simply priceless. It contains a large amount of spiritual qi, and if you are lucky enough to get at least one of these, the spirit will become incredibly strong. Qian replied that he didn't care how valuable they were, She could take 3 stems for herself. The girl immediately began to thank him, and the young man thought to himself that he had recently eaten as many as 7 pieces, and now it was clear why he had become so stronger. After some time, they reached Tianmen, and the guy asked why there were so many people there. The girl replied that the power of this place is simply unimaginable, so it is not surprising that many people want to be disciples in their sect. The cultivators soaring in the sky declared that anyone who entered the stone staircase and walked up 3 steps would be able to study in their school. The guy thought to himself that this was really a stupid task again. Yi Yuanxiu introduced herself and said that she came to this place specifically to try it out. The girl went up the stairs very quickly, and she had only 9 steps left to the end. Those present were amazed at her strength and considered her incredible. Our hero watched this with his mouth open and listened as others said that she was so young and it was a surprise that she had such power. It's hard to believe that someone can be so talented at a young age. Qian thought that if he failed again, he would be very embarrassed. But despite this, Yuanxiu is waiting for him, and he can't seem to be a weakling, so he has to try anyway. To his great surprise, he managed to climb up without any problems. Our hero himself was surprised by this. A new friend was sincerely happy for him and said that he was a great fellow. Qian exclaimed that it was a piece of cake. And turning away, he wiped the cold sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief and exhaled, glad that he didn't screw up in front of Xiu. After some time, those who managed to pass the test and were chosen began their training. The teacher said that in order to become immortal, their body must be one with the Tao. They will then be able to use their willpower to control objects. If they manage to reach the peak, they will be able to soar in the sky, move mountains, and move seas. The cultivation levels of cultivators are divided into 5 realms: small, consciousness, saint, emperor, and immortal. Each sphere has 9 levels, also known as the 9 heavens. Listening to all this, our hero noted that it was simply amazing and very interesting. His companion agreed with him. The teacher continued that there is jade purity in the green jade scroll. This is the main method of their sect, and the blue scroll contains pills to prevent them from feeling hungry. Everyone will meditate near this mountain for 3 months. During meditation, the young man thought about what he would need to tell Xiao Su about his achievements. In addition to the jade purity method, he will also practice Buddhist sutra. 3 months later, the young man could already lift a huge stone with the help of his abilities. Then everyone noticed that the elder had arrived. This meant that it was necessary to go up to meet him. The guys ahead were discussing that they thought that they would be able to settle in one of the 7 main peaks after 3 months of meditation. But they did not expect that there were still some tests ahead. Even though they have been practicing for quite a long time, it is still very difficult to become an inner disciple. The young man noted that this was still much worse than the university entrance exams. Xiao grabbed his hand and began to drag him along, saying that it was necessary to choose a good place for joint practice. After some time, they found a suitable place and noted that it was very beautiful there, so they should stay there. Suddenly, a woman's voice was heard saying that they had better retreat. Xiao sees that the guys also like this place, and she doesn't think they will agree. Chu stood behind her Yuwei, who was an inner disciple of the Heavenly Emperor sect. The young man replied to Shimei that there was no need to worry, because in this sect there were not many people who would be able to go against the Chu family. He then introduced himself as Qian, saying that he was the brother of Sidao, who is the main disciple of the Emperor's celestial sect. Can he let his sister take this place? The guy replied that they liked it there too, so let them look for another place. But the guy turned out to be a very persistent person and said that there was nothing that he couldn't get. Our hero replied that then he would be very interested to see how he would receive it. Everyone immediately whispered that everyone in the sect is afraid of the Chu brothers. Is this guy really tired of living? Because few people can dare to go against their family. While Yuwei was talking about how she gave him a chance, but he decided not to take it, so don't blame him. Another young man appeared and said that there was no need to fight against such a small fry. Let him leave it to him.
Without thinking twice, the young man simply kicked a huge stone in his direction with all his might.
At great speed, the cobblestone hit the target and threw the impudent man a long distance back. Those present immediately whispered that his strength was simply terrifying. Where did this monster come from in their sect? Juve immediately shouted that this man dared to offend the sect members. It is necessary to get rid of him, and his subordinates immediately said that they understood everything, after which they began to surround Qian in order to make it more convenient to attack, and he could not escape anywhere. One of them already rushed at him with his fists, shouting that if he decided to become a hero, then nothing would come of it, since he did not even come close to this role. But the guy deftly dodged and immediately struck him in the jaw. The attack was so powerful that the young man was thrown back some distance. Then they decided that 3 of them should attack him. The spectators began to say that 3 4th-level masters decided to attack him at the same time, so the boy would not be envied. But this did not frighten the young man at all, and he began to deal with them first, striking everyone and not giving a single chance to do anything in response. His companion said that the whole Xiaofan beat them badly, but they deserved it. It was not worth it. Juve said that he would give him one last chance. Let him kneel before him and beg for mercy. Then he will break both of his arms and leave the Heavenly Emperor sect. Our hero exclaimed who he was and what he thought of himself. Does he really think Qian deserves this? After which, a huge stone boomed again. But Juve smashed it with his sword so that it broke into small pieces, which began to fall on everyone else. Our hero asked the girl what it was all about and how it was possible. She replied that it was a spiritual weapon. On the Huayun continent, it is divided into several levels: mortal, spiritual, precious, and the most valuable, the legendary immortal weapon. Spiritual weapons greatly increase a cultivator's power. Very few within the realm of consciousness could wield weapons of this rank. Meanwhile, the opponent said that he simply gave this boy a chance to survive. The girl warned that Xiaofan needed to be careful, since magic weapons should not be taken lightly. Our hero concentrated, took a deep breath, and began to quickly move from side to side, demonstrating what he was capable of. The opponent noted that he was quite agile, but this did not matter, because he would die anyway. But the blow of the sword did not reach its target, because the young man very deftly dodged it. Taking off his clothes, he flew up and said that it would be interesting to see how he would cope with such a blow. After which, he advised me to be smarter in my next life and learn to distinguish between who can be provoked and who cannot. The friend began to worry very much about our hero and screamed for Xiaofan to run away from there as soon as possible. Those present also noted that this spiritual weapon is very powerful and the boy's end has come. But the young man parried the blow and the sword simply flew to the side, sticking into the ground. Taking advantage of the fact that the opponent was dumbfounded since he did not think that this was even possible, our hero struck him in the stomach. Everyone immediately started saying that this guy is too strong. His speed and strength are incredible as he managed to hit Juve with his bare hands. The loser still couldn't calm down and barely got to his feet and said that whoever kills this impudent guy now, he promises to give his sword to Xin Yun. They, of course, would like to get such a spiritual weapon, but they did not dare to do this, since this boy knocked him down without anything. The man said that he remembered this day and he had better not run away the next time he comes for him. Our hero was tired of listening to him show off, so he rushed to attack him, shouting that he hated people of this type like him and there was no point in threatening him. With his blow, he knocked out his opponent and he was left lying on the ground in an unconscious state. After which, he told his friends to take that guy away from him and leave as soon as possible, because he and his girlfriend needed to train. The guys replied that Qian had run into trouble. When his older brother finished training, he would die a terrible death. The girl worriedly asked if everything was okay with him. The young man replied that he was not harmed at all. Then, she asked how to understand the fact that he called her his friend. The guy explained that, for example, there is a boy and a girl who have a really close relationship. The girl is a friend for him, the guy is a friend for her. 130 yuan, Xua clarified whether this means that he is her boyfriend. Our hero replied that everything was exactly like that. She got it right. Now he is her boyfriend, her one and only. A month later, the girl was sitting on a tree eating chicken and asked our hero if Qian was hungry. Maybe he wanted some. Then they noticed that all the cultivators with their swords began to flock to the mountain. This was due to the fact that a tournament was about to begin for the inner circle, in which anyone could challenge anyone. Only one winner will be accepted from each round. Yuan Xue immediately jumped into one of them and said that she had come to receive instructions. Sometime later, the competition continued and the first winners began to appear. The mentors noted that these 6 are quite good, and they are much better than the students in the last tournament. It seems that luck smiled on them. So many talents with excellent skills appeared on these circles that they were very pleased to watch such a delightful spectacle. While resting on a tree, the young man heard a conversation between 2 guys who said that this time the reward was a spiritual weapon. They are generally interested in this. Qian Xiaofan shouldn't be afraid of Chu's revenge Yuve, because he behaved quite arrogantly. Qin Mahao, who was at the 7th stage of the small sphere, shouted to our hero that he should stop hiding and fight him, man to man. The young man replied that these were too loud words for a swindler, as if he was afraid that he would not be noticed. The guy replied that he carries spiritual weapons with him out of habit, and one hand is enough for him to deal with those who harmed Master Chuyu and his juniors. Therefore, today he intends to achieve justice. Xiao Fan laughed loudly and asked those present if they had heard this, because he said that he would defeat him with one hand. Let there be witnesses so that if he loses, he has no excuses. After which the young man did not waste time and immediately rushed to attack the self-confident guy. Qian noted that not only is Brother Sin merciful, but he doesn't even resist. He could not even imagine that the young man was so kind. Shouting that our hero was about to die, the young man attacked him, but his blow was instantly blocked. Since Xiao Fan grabbed his hand tightly, the opponent tried to pull it out of his tenacious hands, but he failed. Then, the young man simply kicked him with all his might, and he flew down out of the circle. Having risen to his feet, the guy said that no one had ever humiliated him like that in his life, so he would kill him. Grasping his spiritual weapon, he again rushed to attack the young man. But Xiao Fan simply knocked the sword out of his hands and pushed the impudent boy away from him, shouting that he really decided to try to scare him. Grabbing him by the collar, our hero asked what happened. It is such meanness to refuse your words. How could he even use a spiritual weapon? The young man will now simply beat him to death for this. Those present were shocked by what was happening, because after all, Jin Mahao, master of the 7th stage. Did the opponent really think that he was strong enough with this sword? Their abilities are different like heaven and earth. Even the greatest weapon will not help him defeat our hero. After a long competition, the 7 inner disciples were finally elected. Stu suddenly appeared Yunlin, who asked our hero who allowed him to take his sin sword Yun. Yuve immediately began to incite that he not only insulted him, but also took away the sword that his brother gave him. And the guy absolutely does not take him seriously. Our hero tapped him on the head with his finger and asked if this kid was the same footman that Chu found Yuve. The milk on his lips hasn't even dried yet. What other sword should he give him? Guns are not toys for children. The boy got angry and started screaming. How dare he treat him so disrespectfully? And magical energy began to appear above him. Our hero said that he is apparently a good fighter, but unfortunately, he is stronger. After these words, the sword crumbled in his hands. Observers noted that it looks like the Chu soul practice Tower Sidao. He gave it to his younger brother because he was afraid that he might be bullied while he was away. The kid confirmed these words and stated that this is the secret weapon of his older brother, and it is a great honor for our hero to die under this tower. A friend screamed at him to be careful, and our hero thought that this thing was quite powerful, and he was afraid that he might not be able to cope with his power at the level of a small sphere. Dragons began to hover around the tower, and the young man noted that this was an ambush since he did not know any techniques. The kid said that Xiao Fan shouldn't even try to resist because these are the 9 dragons that seal the heavens. Even a consciousness realm master would be overwhelmed by this power. Our hero began to remember everything that had happened to him recently and noted that he absolutely did not want to die. Under the influence of the young man's strength, the tower began to crack and crumble. When it was destroyed, Qian thought to himself that he almost died because of this piece of junk. When he grabbed the insolent man by the scruff of the neck, he immediately began shouting that he would not dare to hit him. Of course, the young man did not listen to him and asked what about that big brother who was hiding behind him. Let him come out and not hide. Chju suddenly appeared Sidao, who was the main student, asked who dared to hurt his little brother like that. Our hero noted his powerful aura, and a moment later he was immediately grabbed by a magical force from which he could not escape. Suddenly, appeared Chiu Yue, who congratulated Brother Sidao on successfully achieving soul incarnation, as he is the first of the new generation of the Heavenly Emperor Gate sect to succeed in doing so. If someone with a status like his fights with newcomers, he will lose his reputation. Therefore, it is necessary to stop here. Our hero noted that this goddess was simply beautiful, and his friend was angry and asked what this pervert was staring at. His unexpected girlfriend ran up to this girl and exclaimed that she really missed her sister. The eldest replied that she had not told her for 2 months that she had arrived in Huantianmen, even after that says that she misses you. The girl replied that she just wanted to surprise her, after which our hero handed her the immortal spiritual root, but the sister said that it was too valuable and she could not accept it. The young man said that the girl saved his life, and this is just his gratitude, so she should accept it. Xiu Yui replied that it was good. Then she asked Xue why not come back with her. Xiao replied that she could not go anywhere, since in this case, Xiao Fan would be left all alone. The young man was very happy in this world, because some people were worried that he might be left with himself. The guy exclaimed that the girl was very kind to him, and if she wanted him to thank her with his body. Xiu replied that absolutely no one needed his body. Then he asked when he could marry Xiao. The girl asked in surprise why he even thought that she wanted to marry him. In just a second, our hero's facial expression changed, and he asked his friend to tell him something about this world. At first, Xiao didn't really understand what he meant, but he looked so serious, and she saw him like that for the first time. This world is known as Zivi. On Earth, many astronomers have speculated that this small purple star, which lies far from Earth, is another source of life in the universe. But with existing technologies, this theory can be limited to only speculation. People from Earth will never know that there really is life there. Our hero noted that it turns out that he really passed through time and space, after which he asked how forces are divided in this world and who obeys whom. The girl explained that at the moment there are 4 main sects: Zivei Qiao, Huantianmen, Qian, and Bingan. But in fact, there are several more hidden clans that have existed for many generations since time immemorial. They are even scarier and much stronger than the 4 major sects. The young man was very interested in this, and he asked which ones exactly. The girl got angry and screamed why he was listening to her, because these are hidden clans, and naturally, nothing is known to ordinary people about them, so how can she know? Huan was originally the remnants of the Taoist sect. After she disappeared, the hero took over the earth and founded the Heavenly Emperor sect. There are secrets hidden there. Even world masters tried to find the key to solving this riddle, but they could not find it. When asked how she knew all this, Saiwei replied that her grandfather told her all this. The young man noted to himself that in order to know so many ancient secrets, one must be a supreme master. She then said that there were only 5 days left, so let him take the spiritual route and she would help him train by channeling the qi energy. Later, Sayao will tell him something else. The main thing at the moment is to relax and not worry, because the worst thing that can happen to him is a rupture of the body. Our hero didn't understand how he could relax here and what she was even talking about. Then she added that if he doesn't eat this plant right away, then she will no longer be his girlfriend. Then she put her hands on his back and told him that he should control his sea of consciousness and allow spiritual consciousness to penetrate his body. Every creature that was born in this world contains impurities in its body. By purifying it from bone to marrow, the practitioner unlocks the hidden powers within it, providing himself with advantages in his future cultivation. The girl thought to herself that this was the first time she had helped someone clean their bones. Xiao didn't even expect that everything would go so smoothly. But suddenly the guy began to appear through and through. He was in a lot of pain. Sayo did not understand what was happening to him and why there was so much spiritual energy in his body. The guy didn't understand what was happening and couldn't wake up. He felt like his body was about to explode, but he didn't really want to die. Using the spirit to develop the body, divinity to educate the body, and willpower to harden, one can break the boundaries of everything in nature. This was a mystical technique for training cultivated at an early stage. After this, people have a strong physique like a diamond. Possessing incredible strength, the physical shell cannot be damaged by conventional weapons. When Xiaofan broke through the roof to the top, the girl shouted at him to stop, because this could alarm the entire Emperor's celestial sect. The young man replied that he himself would not want this, but he could not stop. He then turned to the copper shard and asked to hide the spiritual energy of his body in order to prevent anyone from discovering it. After which, he began to fall down. The girl immediately ran up to him and asked what happened to him and if everything was all right. She will be his girlfriend. Just don't let him die. The young man jumped up sharply and said that it's good, he won't die, but let her not forget what she just said. Sometime later, the young man noted that he was not only able to restore his strength, but also raised his level with the help of a coppersmith. He acquired an ability that helps him hide his level or change it. Sai Wei approached him. The young man said that, of course, he was handsome, but she should not constantly watch him. Sooner or later, he will become her man. The girl replied, that who needs him anyway. She wonders how he manages to change his levels. The young man replied that he would tell her about this only if she marries him. Then, the guy added that it seemed like she wanted to tell him something else. Xiao replied that the immortal old man said that they were living in a special time. It is from this era that someone will comprehend the Tao and reach the heavens of the foretold legends. The young man clarified how strong this old man is. The friend replied that she did not know since she had never seen him, but he was definitely stronger than Qian. Xiaofan declared that he had already made his decision and would become a witness to the Tao and also reach heaven. He firmly believes that this is a great path that man practices and seeks great wisdom all his life. When our hero said that he would do this in order to protect her, the girl replied that who needs him to protect her? She is already very strong in herself, and there is no need to laugh at that. 3 days later, our heroes were thinking about which of the peaks they would be distributed to. Since there were generally 7 main peaks, Tianhen, Tiandu, Tianyum, Tianyan, Tianxin, and Tianu. The master announced that they would all be distributed to the main peaks and should not forget to train others in the future. Let them concentrate only on their practice. The disciples bowed to him and said that they would live up to the elder's expectations and would try not to let him down. When the distribution began, our hero noted that now only Tianhen Peak, where Chiji is located, remained Sidao. Is he really that unlucky? But unexpectedly, they threw him a pill of a simple soul, which sent him to the peak of Uve, which our hero had never heard of. When he was led to that place, the guy thought it was strange. How could it even be considered the main peak? It can't even be called a mountain. Then he realized that it was some kind of trap and caught Lin Quan and Tan Yu, who immediately began to say that Jian is a fierce person and deserves his name. They heard about their new brother's achievement. Liu suddenly appeared Chenan, who said that this place cannot compare with the 7 major peaks. There are not many good resources here, so let him take this pill as a gift. Then he said that they could take a break and enjoy their free time, and he needed to do his own business. At dinner, the new brothers talked about how he couldn't even imagine how famous he was. They are very pleased to communicate with him because when he arrived in the sect, he beat up Chuju's cousin Sidao, ended up beating his younger brother. But Xiadao is the main student of the section. He has a mysterious background and even many elders treat him with respect. But Xian managed to offend him. The young man began to guess why he ended up in this particular place. Because if he had not touched his pet, he would not have ended up there. Xiaofan then asked why they were there and who the old man was. The guys explained that they were originally students of the Alchemist Pavilion, but unfortunately, they destroyed the bottle of pills and were sent here as punishment. As for the elder Liu, he was actually put under arrest. He was an elder of the Heavenly Emperor sect. Due to the deviation, his cultivation was lost forever and Liu was sent there. Although he has lost his cultivation, his sea of consciousness still exists. If someone discovers it, they will be able to learn the secrets of the sect. The old man's body is very weak. The sect decided not to provide mortal needs such as food. Instead, they give pills as the body's sustenance. Every day, they are given 2 pills. Even the young find it difficult to quench their thirst and hunger, let alone the older ones. They gave some of their pills to him, but he keeps them and never uses them. Every couple of nights, the old man secretly fed them, thinking they didn't know about it. Our hero noted that the elder had just given him his pill. He devoted most of his life to the cult, but in the end, he suffered this fate. He was extremely outraged by this because these were not people, but simply animals who dared to do this to him. Suddenly, an elder appeared and asked why they were making such a noise here. Our hero handed him a fried leg and told him to try it. And if he liked it, then Xiao Fan would catch more rabbits and would fry them for him every day. The old man noted that it looked very tasty because the outside was crispy and the inside was tender. The aroma was simply incredible. Suddenly, a male voice was heard, who indignantly asked what kind of behavior this was. How dare they roast meat in the great heavenly emperor sect? Let them get out of there immediately. It was Van Chun, a disciple of Tianyin Peak, who was at the 7th stage. The guys noted that the older brother was going overboard because they just decided to fry some game and didn't do anything wrong. The young man shouted that how dare he contradict him, because this is a bunch of some kind of garbage and none of them have a level higher than the 5th. The elder replied that these guys only wanted to feed the weakened old man so that he would regain his strength. He promises that this will not affect the martial arts training process in any way. The impudent man exclaimed that Liu had stooped to the point of satisfying his hunger with such slop. This all looks very pathetic. Our hero came forward and asked to be allowed to explain himself to this young man. Without saying another word, Xiao Fan struck him with such force that he flew back and crashed into a tree. The arrogant guy began to be indignant that how such a trash from Yuve Peak dared to beat someone who is an inner disciple. Our hero replied that if the trash managed to hit him, then it means he himself is even much worse. The inner student declared that he would not leave it so easily. He will remember it and will definitely take revenge. Qian replied that he should calm down already. If he needs help, then let him call his friends so that they can practice together. Sometime later, our hero heard Liu being called a pathetic old man and told to tell that brat to show them respect and get out of that place. Literally a second later, a huge stone flew towards his head, so much so that my teeth started falling off. It was a young man who exclaimed that his brother turned out to be obedient and brought so many friends. And not 5 minutes had passed before the young man defeated absolutely everyone who was there and dared to voice complaints to the old man. Holding one of the swords in his hands, the young man thought about whether it was strong enough, but then accidentally broke it in half. Then he threw the remains towards the insolent person who approached them and made a remark and said that their first meeting was unsuccessful. The young man thought to himself that although the sword is not a spiritual weapon, great efforts were made to create it. Even level 9 masters couldn't handle it, but that kid was able to handle it. Then the guys realized that it was better not to mess with him and they needed to get out of there as quickly as possible. But the young man said that they destroyed his house and they would not be able to leave so easily. First, you need to repair it. Our hero felt just fine. Everyone served him because the legendary ruthless Xiaofan arrived at Uwe Peak. Then the young man pointed somewhere to the side and asked Brother Van why nothing had been done there yet. The guy couldn't stand it and exclaimed that they didn't violate anything, so don't let him mock them. Xian replied that if he said to fix it, then he needs to fix it, or let him bring people from the secret kingdom to entertain him, and if he can't, then let him shut his mouth. Suddenly, Xiao appeared Siwei, and our hero told her that the brothers were simply helping him restore the house. Other students immediately surrounded her and began to admire how beautiful she was and ask her name. The girl suggested changing the topic and told Xiaofan that she had been given a task. Then she asked if he wanted to go with her. They then agreed that they would meet tomorrow at Tianu Peak and Xiao would wait for him there. After which, she said goodbye and left. The young men asked in surprise that he was really going to go to that peak. Our hero asked what was wrong with this. Do they mean to say that they have the desire to complete the task with his Xiaoshui? The guys said that this is prohibited here, but the young man seemed to be blown away by the wind. Noticing 2 guard girls, Xiaofan said that he wanted to find someone and asked if they could tell him the way. But the girls continued to stand silently without uttering a word, so our hero began to walk around them and ask if they even heard what he was saying. One of them put a spear to his throat and exclaimed that men were forbidden to be on the peak of Tianu, so how dare he come there? Our hero thought to himself, why Lin Xuan and Tan Yu didn't tell him about this before? The guy couldn't think of anything better than to distract her attention and exclaimed that there were flying saucers behind her. While the girl turned away, he quickly ran away. After some time, they organized a meeting at which they said that today a stranger had invaded them. They must definitely find him, and if someone stumbles upon him, then let him not regret it and punish him properly. Xiao Fan, who was watching all this, noted that these ladies were going overboard. He simply, one might say, came to visit. Besides, Cao even said herself where she lives now. Suddenly, he noticed a girl near him and noted that she seemed to be from a secret kingdom. While he was deciding how best to hide, the stranger had already disappeared somewhere. Having run to a safe distance, our hero noted that this place was simply hellish. The girls here are all quite skilled, so it is necessary to find Xiao and pick her up as soon as possible. Having reached the reservoir, Xian thought that on his way he had already met 3 masters of the Holy Realm and 5 masters of the Secret Realm. Then he noticed some pink cloth in the water and noted that it seemed that an enemy was nearby. Suddenly, a beautiful girl appeared from the water and apparently decided to just swim. Our hero exclaimed that if he said that he was just passing by and decided to wash himself, would she believe his words? But of course the stranger didn't believe him and started trying to attack him with ice magic. When the young man hid near a rock, the girl began to go looking for him and asking him to come out so that they could talk. She didn't understand why she couldn't feel his breath, because in any case, he was somewhere nearby. So she shouted for this coward to come out before she cut off his head. Our hero thought to himself that if a man said that he would not go out, then he would not go out anywhere. Suddenly, he heard a wonderful aroma and a familiar voice, so he immediately appeared in order to attract the attention of Saiwei. 486. Bin Sin immediately screamed that he was a pervert and wanted to attack him again. The young man hid behind his girlfriend and exclaimed that it was just a misunderstanding. The girl didn't understand why she called him that and asked him to tell him about everything in more detail. Sometime later, our heroes explained the entire situation and everything fell into place. 289. Siyu Yui said that it was reckless to let the young master come to her at Tianu Peak. Xiao asked for forgiveness and said that she had completely forgotten that men were not allowed to be there. Without the permission of the chief at the peak, even experienced masters from the Heavenly Emperor sect cannot go there. First, you need to register. Otherwise, the one who violated this rule will be expelled. The girl said that Xian was not aware that entry was always prohibited for men. This rule was coined by the first chapter of Tianu Peak. The guy noted that the old woman was very cruel, and he was almost caught. Yui then handed him a jade pendant and said that she would like to ask him to accept the jewelry. With it, he will be able to freely enter and exit the peak. Students and teachers will never put him in an awkward position again. A friend said that Yu's sister came up with it all pay. She was the head of the first generation. The young man noted that if this thing belongs to that old woman, then it will bring him nothing but misfortune. Then Chiu exclaimed that they still haven't met properly and decided to introduce Bin Sin. She is not only a disciple of the peak, but also the heiress of the Ice Palace, and is also its saint. The young man felt uneasy because she belonged to one of the 4 great sects and was an heiress. Sometime later, the young man was explained that it was with her that he must complete the task. They need to go to the Ice Palace and find a secret letter there. Then send it to the head. The young man exclaimed that he suddenly felt sick. Perhaps this is due to injury, so this time he will not be able to join them. 300. Bin Sin snorted that he was just afraid of something, that's all. That's why he's looking for all sorts of excuses. Our hero noted that this was a cruel method. It seems that she knew that in this case he would not be able to refuse. On the way, Xiao Fan thought that he did not hate this Ice Queen because she would not do anything bad to him. Then they met an old acquaintance who exclaimed that it seemed that after several days of absence, this guy had become more energetic. The young man did not answer all this and simply asked who he was and why he was asking him questions. The young man shouted that his name was actually Jin Mahao and he is an inner disciple of Tianhuan Peak. The guy replied that everything is clear now. He's very sorry, but don't blame him. As far as he knows, the young man still has not found his tooth. His attendant said that he was too young and frivolous, so he offended his elders. After which, he was sent to Uwe Peak, and the spiritual sword that was supposed to be given to him went to Brother Sin. It became clear to the young man how everything happened, so he simply snatched the sword, which rightfully belonged to him, from the hands of the insolent man and went on about his business. Afterwards, the young man shouted out advice to the girls that they should stay away from him so that he would not tarnish their honor. It is much better to follow young Master Qian and protect your cultivation path. It's nobler than getting mixed up with this garbage. 311. Bin Sin was tired of listening to all this, so she simply turned them into a huge block of ice with the power of her thoughts. The young man noted that it was very cool and that this is how they should be treated. He noted to himself that she was very cold and he couldn't stand it. Finding himself on the edge of a cliff, our hero wondered how they were going to move on. The girls said that everything would work out calmly. Their journey will last about 10 years. Then they threw him down the cliff. Once the cultivation level reaches the secret realm, then a person can travel through the air relying only on his own strength and without using objects such as the Dao sword and others. The young man grabbed the weapon with his hands and feet, thinking to himself that why could it only be a sword, and in general he would complain. He then noticed that both girls were not using a sword, which meant Xiu had moved up another level. In other words, it turned out that out of all of them, he was the weakest. Having arrived at the place, Xiao suggested going to the tea house, which is located nearby, in order to rest a little. Suddenly, our hero crashed into some man and started shouting why the hell he was standing in his way. The man told him not to ask stupid questions and just look ahead. There was a tablet on which incomprehensible hieroglyphs were written, and the young man did not understand what was being said there. The young man shouted that he was a man who professed Taoism and was not obliged to understand what was written on some foreign things. The man did not understand why he yelled at him, because the woman who stood in front told him that this young man was a demon from her house. After a while, they were already sitting in a coffee shop and drinking tea. The guy still didn't let go of the situation, and he continued to get angry. Suddenly, the young man heard the locals driving away some beggar and saying that he had no place there, so let him get out of there. When the young man began to beg to save his grandfather Qian, the man shouted that how dare he distract the gentleman while he was drinking tea. He stinks, so let him go and kick him as hard as he can. The girls were extremely outraged by this behavior, and they shouted that they were even allowing themselves. Grandfather told his grandson that he had already lived enough, so he should just return home. The guy replied that the uncle who bought the vegetables said that there were experts in this place who could help him. Sozi will definitely save him. The impudent man replied with mockery that he didn't understand that he was an ordinary scum of society. If the guy can withstand 10 of his kicks and survive, then so be it. He will help his grandfather. Sun Qiu was ready to do anything for the sake of his relative, so he covered his head with his hands and said that he should begin. The man replied that he asked for it himself. No one forced him. Then he began to deliver powerful kicks to his back. When he finished, he noted that today was just a beautiful day and got ready to go about his business. But the beggar said that they had agreed that after this he would save his grandfather. The man replied that he promised, but he could not do it, so further communication was simply pointless. But the guy grabbed him by the leg and said that it was not fair. Why did he deceive him? Because a man should know a way to save his grandfather. When this vile man again wanted to kick the poor youth, Xiaofan suddenly appeared and covered him with himself. Our hero simply glowed with anger and said that if he didn't stop mocking him right away, then Xian would not leave a wet spot for him. The young man recalled how, as a child, his peers mocked him and did not allow him to play with their things, threatening that they would beat him to death. When he was 10 years old, his grandfather picked him up. He was not rich, so in order to give him everything he needed and send him to school, he had to save even on food. Then for the first time, he felt what family warmth and happiness was. However, God turned out to be merciless and, unfortunately, when he was 15 years old, his grandfather died. He never got the chance to repay him for everything he did for him. This pain haunts him all his life. Shen Fenmen, who was at the 7th stage, asked our hero that he was really tired of living. The young man replied he gives him exactly 10 minutes to save this guy's grandfather, and then he will finish him off. The The man began to loudly mock him and ask those present if they had heard what this kid was saying at all. How dare an ordinary guy with level 5 dare to challenge him? In order to restore the poor boy's strength, our hero fed him one pill. Those present were surprised where he got the golden pill and who this guy was. The girls were also surprised that this was really the same pill that Xiaofan received when he was accepted as an inner disciple. On the Violet Star, all medicines are divided into levels from low to high. Their spiritual energy increases as their level increases. These medicines are the Master Pill, Golden, Spiritual, Immortal, and Imperial. With the exception of the main one, all the rest are very rare and expensive. There was a sect that practiced alchemy. Of course, nothing compares to their achievements, but the most they could invent was the immortality pill, not to mention the imperial one. However, all this exists only in legends. Therefore, even gold is a very expensive pleasure. When the beggar came to his senses, Sias said to go up to them and sit together, while Xiaofan dealt with that bad guy and helped his grandfather. The girls immediately began to pour them tea and talk very kindly. The new acquaintances were very happy about this. Meanwhile, our hero told the man that he gave him a chance, but he did not take advantage of it, so now let him blame himself. When the man mockingly asked what would happen now, the young man declared that he would personally destroy him. Then he kicked him with all his might. The man noted that this is simply impossible, because his spiritual strength certainly cannot be higher than the 5th level. His henchmen immediately began to intercede for him and say that if he even dares to touch their master again, he will die on the spot. The young man did not like such arrogant people, so he decided to teach them a lesson by beating them. Then they quickly began to get ready to leave as soon as possible, but they shouted that they hated him and would certainly take revenge. Then a man approached our hero and said that he had excellent cultivation. However, the guy destroyed their boss's place. Today, he will not leave here until he gives an explanation for this. Xiaofan noted to himself that he had very powerful spiritual energy. Our hero thought to himself that the manager of the most ordinary establishment on the most ordinary street could have such cultivation. But he asked out loud why he showed up when people were in trouble. The man replied that they were just mere mortals and in general he was not obliged to help everyone. The young man was extremely outraged by this, and he asked that the life of a mere mortal really meant nothing to him. Then he turned to those present and said that they too were ordinary people until they set foot on the path of immortality. The man replied that now that he had become a cultivator, he only needed the truth about life, and the death of ordinary mortals did not concern him. The young man wanted to punish him because everything in this life should be fair, and what he says is absolutely wrong. The man began to demonstrate his abilities and asked that such a small fry like him really decided to die. Our hero noted his terrifying aura and thought that he was clearly not his rival. But unexpectedly, his spiritual aura was smashed to smithereens by an ice spear. It was Bin Sin, who asked that the old man really didn't understand anything at all. People should not be treated this way. When he saw her, the stranger felt uneasy because this girl is the heiress of the Ice Palace. The man immediately asked for forgiveness because he had just greatly offended Xiaofan. Sometime later, Qian asked why they needed to go to their village. Was it really impossible to find medicine and heal their wounds in that pub? Xiao said that didn't he understand that there was an evil spirit hiding in that old man and that ordinary medicine couldn't help. Looking around, the young man noted that there was indeed a dark aura hovering around the old man. 372. Bin Sin said that they can only suppress it for a while, but if they want to eradicate this evil, then they need to find its source. In fact, using the magic source, even though it had been destroyed hundreds of years ago, had always been a taboo for cultivators. If an evil spirit is discovered in a person's body, then it must be destroyed immediately. If all the local pub cultivators showed their spirit, then even Bin Sin would be powerless. Our hero thought that the best way to heal the old man is to quickly find the source of evil. Then he paid attention to the Ice Queen and noted that her face expressed absolute indifference. In general, it is completely unclear what she is thinking about at the moment. After some time, a village appeared before them, and the old man said that they had finally reached the place. The guys noted that she looked very strange, which means there was something wrong with her. When they got closer, Ji told the headman that he had brought people who could help. These young people are very capable, so they will definitely be able to find a way out. The man immediately began to beg them to help and save the population of the village. Bin Sin replied that they shouldn't be too polite and let them take them where they need to go. The headman pointed to the people and said that all the villagers were sick, but many of them were quite strong. So let them take care of those who are weaker first. 381. Bin Sin noted that it was strange that everyone in this place was sick, but Z was fine, so they needed to go to his house. After some time, having examined the house, the guys were convinced that everything was fine with him. And then, over a cup of tea, the Ice Princess asked directly when the old man became possessed by an evil spirit. Having taken a sip, the man answered absolutely calmly that about 10 days ago. Bin noted that when she asked about this, he did not panic at all. Being an ordinary old man living in a village where everyone is sick, could he have known in such a short time that it was an evil spirit? The answer is simple. It is possible because he is the cultivator of the evil spirit. Chai exclaimed that this was not true and this simply could not happen. But suddenly the old man told his grandson to go to another room while he talked about something with the guys. Let him not worry. Everything will be completely fine with his grandfather, because they cannot offend him. After he left, the man replied that the girl was quite observant. Although the evil spirit cultivation base was lost, she still noticed it and is truly a worthy heir to the Ice Palace. Our hero noted that the Ice Princess is indeed right, and it turns out that he is truly an evil spirit cultivator. The old man began to say that 30 years ago, the heavenly demon sect was unknown to anyone. No one suspected that its power could compare with the 4 major sects. Back then, he was one of the many followers of the heavenly demon sect. One day, the demon lord suddenly disappeared, and then an internecine war broke out in the sect. Some, for the sake of power, would not hesitate to destroy their comrades. The once powerful sect has become a battlefield. The main core died during the battles, and the clan was completely destroyed. In just a month, his cultivation base was lost, so he took the sect's demonic sword and fled. Since the Lord disappeared, this sword was sealed and became the most ordinary iron weapon. The man buried it on the mountain behind this village and hoped to live there in solitude for the rest of his broken life. Our hero asked what happened to the energy of the evil spirits of the villagers. Didn't the sword seal itself spontaneously? The old man replied that about 10 days ago, he felt some changes in the mountain and went to the demonic sword in order to dig it up. It turned out that the demonic sword, which had been sealed for more than 30 years, began to slowly unseal itself. Since the mountain is located close to the village, the energy of the evil spirit began to influence the local residents, thereby weakening them. The man was in direct contact with the demonic sword several times, so he suffered the most. If it weren't for the remnants of his magical abilities, he would have been dead long ago. He then fell to his knees and said that he hoped they could help him and reseal the sword for the sake of the innocent villagers. Let them survive. He alone is to blame for everything. All the sins lie on him, and the locals have done absolutely nothing and do not deserve this. The young man told him to get up because he had done absolutely nothing wrong and did not know that everything would turn out this way. The girls noted to themselves that, to their surprise, this guy turned out to be very understanding and did not disappoint them. Sometime later, they set out on a journey to the place where the sword is located. The old man said that they would soon reach the mountains. The Ice Princess asked why Tsi was not affected by the energy of the evil spirit. The man began to tell that near the place where the demonic sword was buried, there was a small reservoir. More than 10 years ago, while on patrol in that place, he heard a child crying. When he walked in the direction where the sound was coming from, he realized that there was no aura at all near the reservoir. It was similar to the legendary Lake Siwanyu, a crying child who was in the center of the pond. It was Chi, so he suspects that this young man is not a person, but a spirit created from the aura of that lake. Our heroes were shocked by the information they heard. When Xiao Fan asked what kind of lake this was, Xiao explained that it was a body of mysterious questions. Occasionally, you can see the past or future in it. Also in ancient books, it is said that the water from this lake can be used in legendary magical medicine. It will be even more effective than the immortal root. When our hero asked what magical medicine is, Xue began to get angry and scream. Then he listened to her when she told him to study Buddhist canons. There are many different types of medicine. From the weakest to the strongest, this is treasure medicine, magical, ancient, king, and sacred. Xiao Fan replied that everything is clear to him now. Si is fine because he is a spirit. The girl screamed for him to go and study Buddhist canons immediately. When they got to the place, the guy immediately ran into the cave, shouting that he wanted to see it all as soon as possible. But suddenly he began to glow all over, hieroglyphs appeared around him, and the young man did not understand what was happening to him. The Ice Princess noted that this guy turns out to be able to resist the devil himself. The old man said that this terrible energy comes from the sword itself, which is at the end of this cave. The young man asked the elder what level that sword of the heavenly devil was, spiritual or precious, and how powerful it was in general. The old man replied that he did not know this. However, the Lord once said that this is at least a precious weapon. Although it has been sealed for a long time, it is still dangerous and merciless. Over the past 30 years, no one, except this old man, managed to come out of this cave alive. Suddenly, the Ice Princess gave our hero a kick in the ass, and he quickly flew down. Falling onto the rocks, Xiao Fan noted that it was simply ruthless and cold-blooded on her part. Then he noticed that this devilish spirit seemed to be afraid of him. Coming closer to some lake, the young man saw the sword of the heavenly devil. He immediately felt his unimaginably strong aura. Suddenly, a spirit began to emerge from him in the form of a huge skull, which seemed to be about to devour him. The young man did not have time to do anything when an otherworldly magical force pierced his body right through. Our hero fell into the water and thought only that he could not be killed by some incomprehensible sword. Seeing a bright glow emanating from the cave, Xiao noted that Xiao Fan was apparently in danger and needed to be rescued as soon as possible. But suddenly, a young man appeared who was absolutely safe and sound and asked where they were going, because he had already returned himself. The old man immediately asked if he had really successfully sealed the Sky Devil's sword. Qian replied that, of course, do they have any reason not to believe him? They clearly had already stopped feeling the devilish energy. I thought to myself that I had just taken the sword of the heavenly devil for myself and felt very unusual. Bin Sin said that his seal looks a little strange. Then she asked if he wanted to tell them something. Our hero thought to himself that she really knew that he took the sword for himself. The guy replied that there was nothing strange. When he got there, the sword had already begun to seal itself, and he simply used spiritual power to speed up the process. Don't worry, it will definitely be sealed for 200 years. Xiao exclaimed that since there was no longer any danger, they could continue on their way. The girl replied that, in this case, it is necessary to return to the village and then, as soon as possible, rush to the Ice Palace. Local residents expressed their deep gratitude to them for their rescue and said that they hoped that they would see each other someday. After some time, at the Ice Palace, Bin Sin was met by his subordinates, who greeted the celestial goddess. Paying attention to the beautiful blue-haired girl, the young man noted that on such a cold day, some sisters do not wear much clothing. His girlfriend immediately sarcastically said that the guy is very observant. He immediately felt uneasy and said that this was really true. Then he added that it was better for them to go together in order to receive the secret letter. The Ice Palace is a sacred place for nuns, so he will be waiting for them outside. Bin noted that he was very prudent. Although the Ice Palace stipulates that men are not allowed to enter at will, but since he is a friend of Siwei, he can enter. Since the young man expressed a desire to stay outside, she has absolutely nothing against it. But she should warn him that this ice field is not very safe after nightfall. The young master must beware of stray snow wolves. Sometime later, our hero tried to warm up near the fire and thought about why it was taking her so long to take this letter. Does this little snowy celestial really want to get rid of him? Suddenly, the young man heard a loud bark behind him and turned around and saw a pack of wolves who were unfriendly. The young man immediately grabbed the sword of the heavenly devil and said that he would sacrifice them to him. Watching his battle from the side, Xiao asked if Sin was sure that they were doing everything right. The Ice Princess answered yes without hesitation. Meanwhile, our hero was already exhausted because there were too many animals. Suddenly, a wolf of simply gigantic size began to approach our hero, and he felt very uneasy. The blue-haired girl began to worry that the strength of the Snow Wolf King was not below 7th heaven, and Xiao Fan would not be able to defeat him with his bare hands. Something needs to be done urgently. The Ice Princess agreed with her and said that it was necessary to send him help. But Xiao stopped her and said that she shouldn't. The young man wants to prove to everyone the power of his strength, and she believes that he will succeed. Meanwhile, our hero told the wolf that he needed to retreat, otherwise there would be trouble. Today, his training will be to kill a huge wolf. The animal was not going to obey him and, without wasting any time, rushed to attack the young man. But the young man managed to jump to the side and avoid meeting the huge fangs of the wolf. Then he decided to strike back and at great speed, with the help of his magical abilities, he attacked the king. After which, he jumped high into the air and, shouting that he would not be able to kill him, dealt the decisive blow which determined the outcome of the battle. This battle was not easy, but the young man managed to emerge victorious. The girls were shocked that he actually killed a 7th heaven level wolf. Meanwhile, our hero fell to the ground exhausted because he was very tired. The next day, Xiao Fan woke up in some room and did not understand what had happened and where he was. The girl asked menacingly why he was still sleeping, because he had to get up already, since they still had to go down the mountain. The guy thought to himself that she really took this letter. The good news was that he would no longer see that ice maiden. The young man thanked Bin for his warm hospitality and said that he thought he would die yesterday. The girl replied that there was no need to stand on ceremony. The guy was angry to himself that if it weren't for his strength and confidence, everyone would have died. He hopes they never see each other again. Sue said that she doesn't know when they will meet again, so she will miss her very much. The Ice Princess replied that as soon as there is time, the doors to the Ice Palace are always open for them and they can find her there. Suddenly, a young man appeared, who exclaimed that the Ice Princess really knew that he would come, so she was already waiting for him at this place. The girl answered Mr. Seer that she was simply seeing off her friends at the moment who needed to hit the road. When the young man exclaimed that Miss Xu was also here, the girl asked Fenmin what he was doing there. The guy replied that, of course, in order to ask Miss Bean to marry him. The girl thought to herself that since he decided to ask to marry her friend, then she was obliged to check him. After which, she asked our hero if he would defend their little sister Sin. Shah stated that they have different positions with him, so that he cannot even stand on his feet. Bin loves long-term relationships, and someone like him cannot protect her. He will never believe that the young man is capable of anything. Our hero exclaimed what he thought he was like. Does he really have no respect? Let him not act like a tough guy. Fenmin said that in this case, he wanted to see how young Master Qian could protect Bin. After some time in the Ice Palace, Sire was asked what he was doing there again. The young man replied that he had come to see Elder Si. In general, Fenmin has been devoted to Bin since childhood. This time, he came to ask all the elders and owners of the palace to marry her to him. The woman exclaimed that this was really true. Sin immediately replied that she was not going to marry him. Si answered the young master that he himself heard everything. The point is not that she does not want to marry Bin, but that she herself does not want it. Even the head cannot force her to do anything against her will. Fenmin replied that there were no problems. He sincerely treats the Celestial, and this will not change even if she refuses him. The young man will make more attempts until Sin agrees. Then he took out Ice Jade, which is the hardest thing in the world. There is a lot of pure power within it that will help Bin improve his skills. It took Sia a lot of effort to get it. The young man decided to give it to the Ice Princess in the hope that she would be very happy. His senses are like this polar jade, which are just as indestructible. Our hero said that if you take a small ice cube and say that it is the hardest in the world, then everyone will certainly believe it. The guy objected that this is just a simple boy who doesn't even know what polar ice jade is. Therefore, one should not be surprised by such statements. The young man replied that he would bet that this thing is not so hard. When Sei asked who he was, Bin explained that he was a friend she had recently met. His name is Qian Xiaofan from the Tianmen Empire, who came to the Ice Palace to receive a secret letter. To the offer of a dispute, Fenmin replied that the stake would be life. Then he clarified whether he would agree to this. The Ice Princess was indignant that they were going at all. Let them both close their mouths. The young man responded by shouting at her to shut up. The young man placed the polar, icy jade in the center of the room and said that he was very interested in seeing how the young man would break it. Our hero replied that he could do it without batting an eyelid. after which he took out a devilish sword and cut the stone in half the first time. She thought to herself that at least some kind of spiritual force is capable of breaking the polar ice jade into two parts. Fenman got very angry and started shouting at our hero, calling him obscene names. His subordinate said to stop because the mistress of the ice palace might get angry from such behavior. The young man immediately came to his senses and said that he was ready to accept his defeat, since he had only one life. So Xiao Fan exclaimed that his defeat was obvious, so he would never appear in the ice palace again. Finally, the guy said that he remembered him and they would definitely meet again. Xiao threw herself on his neck and said that the young man was simply amazing because he was able to resolve such an unpleasant situation. When the Ice Princess said thank you, the young man said that he had not heard anything and let her repeat what she said louder. The girls were outraged by such impudent behavior, and they began to beat him from both sides. In parting, C said that she wanted to personally thank him for solving that situation himself. Sin is the most prominent descendant of their ice palace in the last 1,000 years, and she cannot marry someone like him. Therefore, the doors of the ice palace are always open for the young master Qian. The young man replied that let Xiao go out because it was time for them to hit the road. When his girlfriend came out, she didn't want to talk to him, and the guy tried to somehow defuse the situation. After the guys left, C said that an era of prosperity was coming, the heavens were being reborn, and as the most talented descendant of the Ice Palace, the girl should take this path. However, to go or not to go is up to her to decide. Fen Min's subordinate stated that they could destroy Qian and the sacred gate of the palace. If only the young master gives an order, then the elder can immediately make them disappear so that they do not even have time to squeak. The guy exclaimed that he was completely crazy or something. Doesn't he understand that it is only because of those gates that Sire remains alive? Then he said, referring to Xiao, that it is not worth provoking the girl from the Kai family. If even one hair falls from her head, the whole world will tremble. I thought to myself that he did not believe that Xiao Fan would constantly be with this representative of the Sea family. Some time later, our hero trained to fly with swords, but he was not particularly successful at this, as he was very nauseous. Xiao encouraged him and said that he would succeed. When the girl handed over the letter from the Ice Palace, she was told that the mission was completed so she could collect her reward. After which the man slammed the doors in their faces and said that they could take their time. The young man was outraged by such hospitality from the owner of the Yanxin Palace. Apparently, after the mission is completed, no one will pay attention to them anymore. Unexpectedly, Xiao said goodbye and said that she was returning to Tianin Peak to restore her sleep pattern. Let Xiao Fan take care of himself. When our hero was returning to Uve Peak, he heard some strange sounds and then saw how the crowd was beating one guy and asking whose side he was on. A huge stone immediately hit one of them right on the head. Grabbing the place of the bruise, the young man shouted who did this and had he really decided to die. Chen immediately appeared and said that they had already dared to bully an innocent guy in broad daylight. Then he added that he was glad to meet them again. The victim said that he was almost dying, but fortunately he came and thanked him for this. Shofan told him not to worry, let him leave them to him. They will be finished in a moment. Taking out a sword from his bosom, the young man said that they could not do anything to him because for the next 3 months they would not get out of bed. After which the bully attacked and did not leave them a single chance to win, since they did not have time to do anything at all. After a short fight, the young man noted that he had long wanted to test this devilish sword in battle. One of them hissed that he would not allow the guy to leave Tianfen until his brother came. Without thinking twice, Xiao Fan hit him again and told him to shut his mouth. Looking at this whole picture, the victim exclaimed whether he had beaten them too much. Qian replied that it was no big deal. They definitely won't die, but they will probably lie in bed for 6 months. Then he and Xiao Pen went to the pond to throw stones into it. Our hero asked that if he was so unhappy at this peak, then why not just leave? The boy asked where he should go. It is unlikely that any peak would want to have a slacker as a student. The young man asked if he wanted to go with him to Uve Peak, since he didn't care where to go. Having no glory, no status, no rights remaining there, he will be able to live without restrictions and completely freely. Pen thought about whether his words were true and whether he was reliable at all, since he did not know what to expect from him. After some time, our hero reached the peak and was met by his friends, who rejoiced at his return and asked who the two girls were who were descending from the mountain with him. The young man replied that why were they worried about some girls when their friend was almost killed in battle. Then the old man's voice was heard, who noted that Xiaofan had finally returned. The guy worriedly asked how he was feeling because he had been gone for a whole month. The man replied that he was fine. A few days later, the young man was meditating on the mountain and working on his spiritual development. Whether on planet Earth or on the star Civi, eternal law exists everywhere. There are strong and weak. If they do not have strength, they will be killed. There is no other way. Therefore, our hero decided that it was necessary to become stronger. One day, he will definitely achieve the fact that he will set foot on the legendary peak. After some time, the young man received a new mission that would need to be completed. As the guy wandered through the fiery forest, he thought about whether Xiao really asked people to send him a mission sheet so that he would eventually carry it out himself. It was said there that it is necessary to hunt 100 firebirds in order to obtain a bird goal. The young man then noted that this mission is very easy, so you can do it alone, and before that, get a good night's sleep. The family of these birds lives on the Civi peak. Firebirds are very common and intelligent. Most of them are rank 3 and level 4 heaven, and she is named so because she can breathe fire. Her gallbladder is an ingredient needed to make certain medicines. Jian thought to himself that, in fact, he had the right to kill them. Fortunately, most likely, you won't even have to use the sword, so you don't have to worry about the fact that he might die. But, unexpectedly, he had to dodge the fiery streams, and he noted that the small birds themselves decided to fly in. Grabbing the sword, the young man exclaimed that the bird would now feel all its power. After some time, 3 large birds were beheaded and were lying on the ground. Then, our hero took out her gallbladder and began collecting them until there were 100 pieces. When the count had already reached 99, the young man noted that it was very tiring. At the moment, there is one more left, and where can he find this 100th prey? Hearing some noise, he immediately grabbed his sword and shouted that he would not get away from him. But this frightened chick did not look like a firebird, and our hero did not understand what it was. Noticing that the bird was wounded, the guy decided to help her, but it was still necessary to complete the mission. When he tried to leave, the little one began to run after him, and he did not understand what to do with him now. Then he asked if he wanted to go with him. But suddenly, 3 men appeared in front of the young man, and he asked who they were. Then he shouted to the old man that he had scared his pet, so let him say what he needs. The belligerent men silently rushed to attack him without explaining anything, but Jian guessed that these were Fenman's people. The young man managed to dodge this blow, but the problem was that they were above the level of the 8th heaven. While our hero was fighting off another attack from one of the warriors, he managed to take his spear for himself. He didn't like these feelings. The weapon was truly unusual. Apparently, it adapts to each master. Most likely, all this is not happening by chance, but okay, the guy will fight with them to the last. During the next attack, the young man was slightly wounded by the tip of a spear. Our hero noted to himself that one day he would take Xia Fenmin's life for what he did. After this, the old man who commanded all these warriors entered the battle and kicked Xiaofan in the stomach with all his might. The blow was so powerful that the young man flew back a long distance, leaving behind a mark on the ground. After this, the man turned to his subordinates and said that the mission was over. So, let them prepare to return to the city. Our hero was practically exhausted and noted that he was on cloud 9, and this was truly unusual. Xiaofan handed him the plant and said that if the elder was willing to spare his life, then he would give them to him as a gift. The old man was surprised that this little guy could still stand on his feet. Then the young man started to run, thinking that he would still fight with a superior enemy until the very end. Hiding in a tree, he quickly began to eat these plants, knowing that they would add strength to him. The old man noticed where he was and shouted for his subordinates to catch him immediately. But suddenly he seemed to disappear without a trace, and they did not understand how this could happen. Suddenly, magical rays began to hit the enemy one by one. One of the wounded died within a second. The old man shouted that they needed to go to their places and find him, but the young man appeared on his own and asked who he was going to look for if it was him by chance. Shouting that he was a deity, Xiaofan rushed to attack them first. Drawing attention to his golden aura, opponents noted that they had never seen energy of this color. The young man shouted that those who want to kill must realize that in the end, they themselves can be killed. When he suddenly disappeared, the attackers began to panic and say that they urgently needed to take a defensive position. The man said that it is necessary to concentrate and not worry about anything. There is no need to give in and fall for these childish tricks. He must be just hiding somewhere, so let them find him immediately. The young man suddenly jumped from the tree and struck with his sword one of those who had attacked him earlier. The others wanted to hit him with their spears, but the young man very deftly jumped to the side, after which he stated that to be merciful to the enemy means to be cruel to oneself. The point is not that he is cruel and bloodthirsty, but that they allow themselves too much. They again wanted to wound Xiao Fan with a spear, but they failed since the guy was so dexterous that they could not catch him. After this, the survivors realized that it was useless to fight him, so they needed to get away as quickly as possible. But one of them was killed by his own elder and exclaimed that all the work done had really been in vain, after which the man shouted why the young man decided to hide again. Let him behave with dignity and fight like a man. I thought to myself that most likely he had some kind of artifact hidden. If the guy really wants to attack unexpectedly, now he is alone so he can compete face to face. Stop hiding. Declaring that he would fulfill his wish, the young man rushed to attack him, deciding to attack from behind. But as soon as the sword pierced the old man's body, he began to glow, as if electric discharges were passing through him. Qian noted that his strength was running low again, so he needed to hurry up and hide in order to replenish the lost energy. While eating the plants, the young man thought about what he should do next because it seemed that he had not touched the old man's vital organs. Then an idea came to his mind and he decided to make a diversion. When a lot of dew appeared on the structure of stone and dry sticks, the supports broke under the weight and made a loud crunch which attracted the man's attention. Taking advantage of this moment, the young man again attacked him from behind and pierced his body with a sword. The old man's last words were that this simply cannot be. Our hero stated that anyone who wants to cause him any harm cannot remain alive. This is his credo in life. Then the young man went to collect trophies. He received 1 soul soldier, 1 movement ring, and 13 golden cores. For them, he can get 136 gold coins, so we can say that he is rich. After which, he mentally addressed Fenmen and said that no matter how powerful their chi is, let them remember that for now, Qian is still the winner. After which, the chick flew up to him, and the guy noted that he had been waiting for him all this time, but he could already go home. On the way, he thought that it was a very pleasant feeling to know that someone was waiting for him and worried about him. When they got to the palace, the young man asked if he wanted to meet the beautiful sisters. The girls were very touched by his appearance, so they began to lisp him and try to cuddle him. When he showed it to Xiao and announced that they now had a child, the girl exclaimed that he was very cute and thanked our hero. When the young man raised his hand, Sai asked if something had happened. Maybe something hurt. The young man replied that he just somehow suddenly became much stronger. The girl made him promise not to do everything alone next time and just ask for help. Let him not forget that he has her. The young man blushed as he was very pleased to hear such words. When the young man said that it was time for him to go home to get some rest, the girl told him not to worry. For these few days, she would take care of the chick. Turning the corner, the guy leaned on the wall and thought about why he didn't immediately admit to himself that he was incredibly tired. When the young man reached the peak of Uve, his friends suddenly jumped out of the bushes, exclaiming that their star had returned. Xiao Fan screamed in surprise and said that they scared him to death, after which he clarified what other star they were talking about. Was it really about him? The guys started chattering that the man who enters and exits Tianfen without hindrance was recognized as the most handsome man in the imperial gates. He is already the idol of all students. Then they began to beg him to take them there with him next time. The young man replied that there was no problem, you just needed to meet a couple of criteria. The first is a beautiful face. But suddenly the young men shouted that it was time to sleep and ran up the stairs. Our hero was taken aback and exclaimed where they were going, because he had not yet finished speaking. The second criterion is good character and erudition. Sometime later, during meditation, our hero noted that, of course, struggle is the best way to improve self-improvement. In a month at most, he would definitely be able to attend the Nine Heavens Festival. It was very interesting whether the selected medications would be able to restore the flow of energy. After eating one, the young man noted that there seemed to be some effect. The young man thought that since they were so effective, he could eat more of them. Literally a moment later, he suddenly flew into the air and did not understand where he was at all, since it was dark. When the sword of the heavenly devil appeared in front of him, the young man noted that he could now easily summon it. After he managed to cut huge blocks of stone, the guy noted that it seems that this is the power of 13 lunar swords. Only after a person has mastered the moon mind skill and raised it to the 9th level will he be able to control the 13 moon ball technique. Our hero noted that just a little more and he will capture the 9 heavens. Then he decided that he needed to hurry up and tell Xiao everything. Maybe she would hug him again for his achievement. But suddenly, a young man appeared in front of him and asked if he was Qian Xiaofan. After the young man answered what would happen if so, the stranger suddenly rushed to attack him. When the young man dodged the blow, those present exclaimed in surprise that he could really avoid it. The stranger noted that our hero has good abilities. The young man asked what he needed from him. His henchmen unanimously declared that this is the main disciple of Tianyan Peak, whose name is in Tianyan, and today he personally came to teach him justice. Our hero noted to himself that these were just tax collectors from the Van Chun group who glorified their name. Xiaofan replied that this means whose sixes were at the peak of Uve. It turns out that now their elder brother has come to take revenge, but he just taught them a well-deserved lesson. The guy replied that it was enough to talk. He only knew that the young man beat his brothers. When our hero once again asked what he needed from him, the guy told him to fight him one-on-one. Xiaofan's friends noted that Brother In is still the master of the Imperial Gate, and Qian is just an upstart. Doesn't he think it's unfair? It turns out that Pig Tianyan likes to intimidate people. The young man thought to himself that they were disgracing him and why they even came here. The guy said that in order for everything to be fair, he will fight at the same level as our hero.
After which, he threw him a scroll and said that if he accepts the challenge, they will see each other in the main ring, and if he refuses, he will die right here and now. Xian replied that he accepted the challenge.
Rumors immediately spread everywhere that Xiaofan had beaten In's younger brother, and he challenged him to a fight. They were dying of impatience, as it was very interesting how it would all end. After some time in his room, the young man reflected on the fact that he himself had challenged him and what else he could do but not accept it. Suddenly, old man Lu came to visit him and said that he had come to say a few words to him. The man said that it was too early for him to fight with that guy. Tonight, he will ask the host of the main ring to cancel their fight. Then he asked what he thought about this. The guy thanked him and said that this was not necessary. He does not dare refuse. If In keeps his promise and fights on equal terms, then our hero will not lose. He knows well that the path of spiritual practices is not so smooth. He has his own goals, so he simply cannot refuse the challenge thrown at him. The master replied that they respected his decision and hoped that everything would be all right with him. Then the old man started to leave, but the young man asked him not to rush. But suddenly, Xiao appeared near him and he shouted how she got there and why she was looking at him like that. The girl asked if everything was okay with his head. How could he even agree to this? She forbids him to participate in this fight. The young man did not answer anything, but simply stroked her on the head and asked if she would come to cheer for him. Xiao first replied that, of course, but then thought about why she suddenly felt embarrassed. That's why I blurted out loud who would even root for him. She has too much work, so she leaves. Finally, she said that he just had to promise her that he would return safe and sound. After some time, in the main ring of the Imperial Heavenly Gates, those present were betting that Qian would be defeated with 5 blows. Others were convinced that he would survive 10 blows. The observer stated that In's cultivation power was lowered to the level of Xiaofan's to keep things fair. Our hero was shouted from the crowd that he should be careful. Although the opponent's strength was reduced, he had already achieved the cultivation of the god of the realm of illusions. The young man shouted why our hero hesitates and does nothing. Let him start attacking already. The young man did not argue with him and immediately rushed towards him in order to strike the first blow. His girlfriend, along with the bird, still came to cheer for him and shouted that he would succeed because she believed in him. noted that among the younger generation, there are many people who can hit him. It is very good that Xian is also capable of this, but unfortunately, he is destined to die today. The young man replied that he was already tired of listening to this monologue. Maybe he would already start doing something. Otherwise, he was really bored. Showing his spiritual weapon, the opponent replied that now he should be taught to value praise. Having difficulty dodging the attack, our hero noted that he was good with a sword, which means he had risen to the level of Yuqin fencing. The spectators shouted that this was excellent swordsmanship and let him kill the guy who did not know the depth of his wisdom. The man said that his swordsmanship has improved greatly, which means this Xiaofan child is probably in danger. Tianyan asked how long he would hide, because 13 Yuqin swords were waiting for him ahead. The young man exclaimed that in this case he would get his sword. When the guy fought off all the swords, the audience noted that in just a little bit, Xiaofan would reach the 9th level of fencing. They couldn't achieve this in 5 years of cultivation, but he managed it so quickly. In wanted to strike again, but he couldn't do it, since the young man teleported from place to place and it was impossible to catch him. When the young man was behind him and asked why he stood rooted to the spot, the young man noted that it seemed that his affairs were bad. But, unexpectedly, the opponent managed to kick him in the solar plexus with all his might. In thought to himself that, whether it was combat experience or physical strength, he would have an advantage. But he cannot overwhelm him, since this guy's pace is much faster than many others. Our hero thought to himself that he would have lost if he had not practiced the Diamond Sutra. Even though he suppressed real-time cultivation, his body remained at Shelven level. He is truly an unusual person. The opponent said that Xiaofan infuriated him with his running back and forth. Our hero admitted that he was strong, but reminded that it was his decision to fight tooth and nail. The challenge in writing was also from him, so he didn't do anything to anger him. Therefore, by saying such things, he makes everyone despise him. It is necessary to remind him that one statement is very reasonable. Arrogant people do not live long. After which he struck him with such force that the opponent flew a long distance back. The audience was shocked that our hero managed to do this. Xiao was happy and shouted that he was a great fellow. Tianyan was just incredibly angry and said that he would kill this guy today. At first the young man was skeptical about these words, but then he saw a dazzling glow. The blow was very powerful, and Xiaofan did not understand what kind of technique it was. If he had not managed to jump to the side in time, he would no longer be alive. This divine light was simply terrible, even if it had not killed him, but in any case, seriously injured him. It was very good that his instincts did not let him down. His girlfriend shouted that this was a battle between fighters from the Ruve kingdom. The use of secret techniques can only be at a level above legendary. It wasn't fair. The man shouted for her to shut her mouth. There are no prohibitions on the use of spiritual powers in a life or death battle. The girl screamed that he was a nasty old man who couldn't even admit that the battle was unfair. The old man was very outraged by the way she spoke to him, so he declared that he would teach her a lesson on behalf of the Mountain Master. The girl replied that intimidating younger people is simply disgusting, but he will absolutely not succeed. Liu told the mining master not to get angry and to be patient. Don't stoop to the level of teenagers. But the man did not listen to him and said that it was simply outrageous to be so rude, so he would now teach her how to talk. The old man noted that this strength was beyond what a Sioux-level cultivator could withstand. Our hero shouted that if even a hair fell from her head, it would destroy him and his entire family. The fiery stream was rapidly approaching the girl, and she did not even have time to put up protection. But suddenly her mentor appeared in front of her and repelled the attack. The man noted that she was very timely, so let her control her student. The woman replied that he said correctly, the girl is her student and it is not his right to punish her. The old man replied that she was so young and did not respect her elders. This means that the teacher taught her poorly, so now let her sit and watch how she will be punished. This arrogant guy really infuriated our hero, and he said that he had gone too far, so first Jian would take care of his son and then deal with him. I thought to myself how this guy could become so strong in just a couple of minutes. The young man shouted that he was a swindler and would now get what he deserved. The guy exclaimed that he couldn't let him win, so he had to attack first. But he didn't succeed, since the young man was much more agile and managed to do it earlier. After which, on the fly, he kicked him again in order to knock him out. But the opponent still managed to stay on his feet, and the young man began to teleport around him at great speed, so that it seemed like there were a lot of him. Then a large number of blows fell on him. He had no choice but to take a defensive position. Don't put up with this. The opponent activated his spiritual energy in order to drive our hero away from him. Then he shouted for him to come closer to him, and now the guy will demonstrate what real strength is. Shouting that he was not going to retreat, the young man dealt him a crushing blow. His father immediately shouted that our hero had offended his son, so he would now teach him a lesson. Yui said that it is necessary to admit defeat and should not interfere in this. The man replied that if anything happened to his son, then she and that boy would be responsible for it. Xiao screamed that he was a vile old man who could only try to attack the weak and nothing more. The mentor turned to him again and said that if his peak was destroyed because of his stupid actions, then let him not blame her. There are many things that he is not able to know, so if he does not want to die, then let him calm down. At this time, Qian flew up to In and began to strike him, shouting that how dare he try to hurt Siwei. He will now beat his son so badly that he will not be able to recognize him and will beat him every time the old man tries to do something to her. Siwei shouted joyfully and said that let him show him where the crayfish spend the winter. Suddenly, a magical field appeared around them, and our hero barely managed to dodge it in order not to get hurt. The opponent said that he was tired of all this, but he really underestimated Xiao Fan. Now let him die by his sword, which will cut him in half. Observers noted that Tianyan, unexpectedly, took out his spiritual weapon, and now the end has come for the boy. Liu noted that along the spear of the glaive there are precious stones that have incredible power. The man recalled that his son's strength is limited, so his weapon also does not work at full capacity. Chan can only be severely crippled, so there is no need to worry. The opponent continued to threaten and say that this weapon would take his life for the humiliation he had just endured. The young man summoned his devilish sword and rushed to attack first in order to put this arrogant insolent in his place. In did not understand what kind of weapon he had that was equivalent to his spear. The spectators were shocked that Qian managed to block the opponent's forces. No one would have thought that he also had a ranked weapon. Xiao exclaimed that the young man had such a good spirit weapon, so she should definitely ask him about it later. Jumping to the side, the guy thought that he did not expect to get such a cool spiritual weapon in the last battle. The opponent rushed to the attack again and declared that even if his strength was limited, he could still defeat him. If a guy talks a lot, In will simply cut out his tongue. When they clashed in a fierce confrontation, Tianyan declared that the young man would die if he continued to irritate him. Unexpectedly, the opponent managed to push the young man away and he fell to the ground, bouncing off her several times. Wiping the blood near his mouth, our hero said that the guy should not blame him because he was about to die. Initially, the young man wanted to save his life and simply teach him how to behave in society, but now he has made him very angry, so let him get ready. A moment later, our hero was already near his opponent and cut off his hand. Everything happened so quickly that In didn't even have time to understand anything. The next blow was to defeat. The young man pierced the arrogant guy with his spear right through. Now the fight was over and it was obvious who was the winner. His father flew into a complete rage and, shouting how dare he, rushed to attack our hero. But, unexpectedly, Yui came to his defense and said that enough was enough, because the outcome of this battle had already been decided. His son's skills are not good enough. Doesn't he still feel shame after this? After which, she turned to Master Jansen and said that apparently he had already finished looking at this performance. So isn't it time to announce the result of the battle? The man announced that Qian had won in a fight to the death. After this, the father quickly flew up to his son and asked him not to move. After which, he began to calm me down and say that everything would be fine. He then exclaimed that one should not forget that Xiao Fan cheated. It's all about his weapon, only thanks to him he wounded his son. The guy also resorted to various tricks, so it is necessary to take this into account. Yui replied that everyone who was there saw everything with their own eyes. It is clear to everyone that his son's skills turned out to be weaker. How long will he continue to try to make excuses? The man said that he was sure that this guy cheated, but he didn't see exactly how. The inside of his sword is filled with dark energy anyway. This must be a demonic weapon. The young man laughed and said that this dishonest old man really thinks that everything happened only because of his blade. Since he refuses to accept defeat, then so be it. The guy will play along with him. After which, he pulled the sword forward and told him to check it and then make their verdict. Janssen said that if the young master wants it that way, then now they will see what kind of weapon it is. During inspection, the man noted that this sword had very stable spiritual energy. After which, he announced that he was clean and his father's accusations were far-fetched, so Xiao Fan honestly held the victory. All those present began to rejoice and shout out words of congratulations to him. Thus ended the death grip between Tian and Tianyan. The next day, everyone in Tianmen was discussing our hero's victory. Everyone said that this young man was incredibly tough and was even able to defeat the guy whom everyone considered one of the best. For some time, interest in the young man's name was very high. Meanwhile, at the peak of the Heavenly Maiden, our hero said that based on the task, he might not go anywhere. But Xiao objected that he should, so let him move. The guy thought to himself that the road to the sea was 6 days, plus he would still have to complete the task. He really didn't want to go anywhere. On the Sea of the Setting Sun, at this time of year the tides are small. After him, the heart of the sea remains stranded, and the mission is to take it back.
After flying on the sword, the young man felt sick again, and the girl asked if he was okay.
Our hero exclaimed that everything was fine and he could endure it in order to complete the mission with such a beautiful girl. Xiao sharply grabbed him by the ear and asked where this pervert was looking again and what he was thinking about. The guy immediately replied that his thoughts were pure. It just seemed to her. Saiwei stated that she forgives him this time. The young man exclaimed that, by the way, he could not believe that the mystical level task was so simple. Why did our hero see that his old acquaintances were standing not far from them, so he thought about whether real enemies would constantly intersect. These were Van Do, who was at the 6th level of the Profound Realm, and Liu Shi, who was at the 3rd level of the same realm. When Xiao asked if something happened, the young man replied that he simply saw familiar faces. The young man is not very familiar with them, so there is no need to worry and you need to move on. The guy really liked Sayo, and he thought that there really were such beautiful girls in this world. He quickly approached her and asked if she would allow Van Do, who is a disciple of Elder Mu Yun of the Jian sect, to know her name and where she came from. Our hero noted that what they say is true. A fisherman sees a fisherman from afar. It works exactly like Chijuyuve. His immoral teacher is no better. Xiao Fan exclaimed that Van Do should not run so far because his mommy should soon call him for dinner, but she may not hear him. The young man asked in surprise who he was and how he dared tell him something like that. His companion exclaimed that this was the same beggar from their village. Xiao answered menacingly that she herself looked like a person without a fixed place of residence. The girl indignantly asked what this harlot thought she was like to call her that. Our hero began to get angry and said that because of such people, their task becomes more difficult. After which, he slapped the impudent girl in the face and ordered her to shut her dirty mouth. Liu Shi screamed how this scum of society even dared to touch her. Van stated that who would have thought that a poor peasant would become so strong? But this doesn't mean anything because his cultivation is significantly higher than Qian's. The young man is ordinary trash. Why isn't he currently protecting the mountain? How dare he even go down and hit the outside disciple? Today, he will show him his place. After he said that a watchdog should remain a watchdog, our hero silently, with all his might, punched him in the jaw. And when the arrogant guy lost his balance and fell to the ground, the guy kicked him several times. Continuing to kick him, Qian said that after several days of cultivation, does he really think that he has become immortal? Let him not even dare to open his mouth in his direction. Let this be remembered once and for all. Noticing that Xiao was looking at him strangely, Xiao Fan immediately began to say that he was generally good, and they were wrong. After our hero taught Van Do a lesson, the young man took Xiu away and began to wait for the tide. As night fell, many people arrived on the beach in search of the heart of the sea. But at night, the peace of the sea was destroyed by many, and it was not clear why this was connected. When the guys tried to get closer, huge waves rose. The young man noted that it seemed like some strange force was blocking the road. Rivals noted that this was apparently the appearance of the legendary Poseidon. After which, they rose up on their swords and went in search of the heart of the sea. Our hero's girlfriend had also already taken off and shouted to the young man to hurry up and not stand rooted to the spot. The guy noted that if they use the sword again, they will have to vomit before finding the heart of the sea. Then he ran at full speed towards the sea and dived into it, burying his head in the bottom. Swimming and looking around, Xiao Fan could not understand where the promised artifact was. Looking outside to breathe air, our hero heard that no one could find him, and his rivals did not understand what was happening. When the young man was thinking that it was unclear why there was nothing around like the heart of the sea, he heard the voice of Xu, who was sailing on a boat and calling this pervert to climb into her. When he swam closer, the girl said that she examined everything with her divine sense, but did not find anything similar to the artifact. She's afraid it might be too deep, when she told him that he needed to climb. The guy started shaking his head from side to side and saying that he didn't want to. She asked what was wrong. How is he going to get around without a boat? The young man noted to himself that he could not stand riding on swords, but in addition to this, he also had seasickness. The young man dreams of putting an end to all transport. He said out loud that he just wanted to swim. Suddenly, the young man smelled a sharp smell of blood and did not understand what was happening. Our hero immediately shouted for everyone to quickly get out of there, since the sea is very dangerous. One of the cultivators laughed and said that an ordinary person who cannot even fly on a sword or swim thinks that they will believe him. What kind of nonsense is this anyway? But suddenly, huge tentacles appeared from the water, which grabbed this boy and dragged him into the sea. Some also suffered the same fate and did not have time to escape, so they were caught. Then a simply gigantic octopus slowly began to emerge from the water. Xiao Fan began to salivate, and the young man noted how big it was and how delicious it must be. When the sea creature grabbed our hero, he began to beat him with his fists as hard as he could. Even the people of the realm of the illusory god cry in pain after his blow. But why does this octopus remain completely fine and seem to feel nothing at all? Xiao didn't understand where this baby came from. He's so ugly and not even half as cute as the chick. The guy exclaimed that she had vision problems because where did she see the baby? And in general, this handsome guy can be eaten alive. The young man then grabbed his sword and decided to try to use it. The young man managed to cut these huge tentacles and he began to fall into the water from a great height. When the octopus began to try to grab him again, our hero decided to use the 13 swords of the clear moon technique. But it was blocked by a sea creature, and the guy noted that things seemed to be very bad. Xiao couldn't stand it and rushed to Xiao Fan's aid, shouting for this monster to let him go immediately. The cultivators noted that she has the purple color of body protection, which means she is strong and has surpassed the realm of the sense of frailty, so maybe she will be able to help them. The young man thought to himself that he did not want to fly on a sword, but this was much better than becoming dinner for a sea monster. Pushing away from the sword, he grabbed onto Xu and told her to fly as quickly as possible. On the way, the girl screamed that this pervert did this specifically to touch her. Looking back, the young man noted that Xiao was simply incredible. This old octopus was scared to death of her. After some time, sitting on the shore, the girl asked whether he deliberately grabbed hold of her. The guy replied that she misunderstood him. He thought to himself that he was not going to admit it, even if he was beaten to death. A friend noted that based on her observations, the Sunset Sea is a very special place. The guy replied that, of course, it is special. Can such a large octopus appear in an ordinary sea? Because usually they are a little smaller, aren't they? Then they heard some noise and noted that another huge wave was approaching again. Humanoid reptiles began to appear from the water, and our hero did not understand what they were. Xiao Fan exclaimed that it was necessary to get off the beach as soon as possible and let Xue move. But the girl noticed that they were not moving forward, but were searching, and it seemed there was something there. Then the monsters began to eat the heart of the sea, which seemed to be a common delicacy for them. Other cultivators also noted that they eat what they need, which means they need to quickly figure out how to take it away. The girl also began to incite the young man to go and take it. Coming out to them, our hero asked if Brother Monster could give him the pebble that was in his hand. Without thinking twice, the monster defiantly threw up the heart of the sea and ate it right in front of Xiaofan. The young man noted that he was too kind to them, so it's time to get more serious. Running up to this strange lizard, the guy suddenly grabbed it by the paw, after which he spun it around himself and threw it somewhere far towards the forest. Some cultivators were shocked that this guy actually went there and decided to take the heart of the sea from them. Meanwhile, Xiao Fan reached the monster that he threw away and tried to open its mouth with both hands so that it would spit out a pebble and give it to him. But suddenly, it simply dissipated. Xiao noted that it seems that these monsters are not able to exist outside the shore, which is why they stand there all the time. The young man turned to Siwei and said that, in this case, she needs to move away, as he wants to evaluate the abilities of these guys. Our hero told the girl to step aside and wait for him to return, and he grabbed a pebble and threw it with all his might towards the monsters. One of the monsters released the heart of the sea from his hands in order to catch this golden pebble. The young man began to run to that very place, simultaneously fighting off the evil lizards. Laughing insidiously, one of the monsters lifted the heart of the sea, towards which the young man was rushing. Xiaofan shouted that he would not allow him to be devoured again, so he should immediately put it on the ground. Then he cut off his paw with his sword. Having managed to catch the heart of the sea, our hero called the girl to throw it to her, and she caught it. The monsters were not going to let him go so easily, and began to slowly surround him from all sides. The young man immediately grabbed the sword and cut the mouth of one of them in half, after which he began to push off from their heads, as if from steps in order to get up to a safe place. The girl exclaimed that the heart of the sea is so incredibly beautiful. The young man again managed to cope with the task. This is simply wonderful. Other cultivators noted that he was incredibly brave and a truly good example for them, but initially they thought that he did not even know how to handle a sword. But the guy turned out to be a master. The young man asked Xiao what his reward would be. The girl asked what other reward he wanted from her. The young man replied that it was her body, but Sue exclaimed that he was a pervert and too frivolous. Our hero objected that he meant simple hugs, but the girl replied that he had already hugged her for a very long time today, so that's enough. When the guys got the heart of the sea, they began to prepare to return back, but something unexpected happened. Van Doe appeared in front of them, and the girl asked what he wanted from them again. The young man replied that he just wanted to talk to the guy who was next to her. Our hero exclaimed that he really wanted to receive again. If he doesn't beat him to a pulp this time, he won't want to continue living. But suddenly, a man standing next to him grabbed him by the leg and did not allow him to do anything. Van immediately thanked Brother Vu for his help and said that this guy is treacherous and dishonest, so let him help pacify him. The man asked who he was because he didn't even belong to his sect with Jian. Therefore, let him explain, and perhaps he will cause him less pain, or... The young man immediately interrupted him and asked, "Or what? Does he really think he can handle it alone?" Vu got angry and said that he gave him a chance, but he decided not to take it. Therefore, now he will be executed for insulting his student. Qian asked that if insulting this guy is punishable by death, then what will he do if this guy commits a crime? What will happen if he starts to mock someone? Will he really continue to protect him? When the man replied that there are no such rules in their sect, the young man said that everything was clear to him and slapped him in the face with all his might. Then he said that he really thinks that he became strong because he reached the level of the kingdom of the feeling of frailty. He fought against people whose cultivation was at the level of an illusory god, so don't dare tell him what to do. The man screamed, "How dare he even? Nothing can save him today." After which a fiery sword appeared in his hands and he rushed to attack our hero. The young man grabbed him by the arm and then kneed him in the stomach. And he said that the first level of the realm of the sensation of frailty is too weak. Does he really think that the title of a member of the Qian sect is so revered that it gives him the right to mock others? What does he even think he is? Van thought to himself that Brother Vu had reached the realm of the sense of frailty and was very famous because of his skills. But how could he lose to Xiaofan? What kind of demon is this guy? The guy thought to himself that if I hadn't helped him, he would have died in the sea of the setting sun, so he must become stronger. After which, he shouted to his opponent to get up. A couple of broken bones is not a serious injury for a great cultivator. Don't let him look at him like that. They say that the fighters of the kingdom of frailty have outstanding abilities, so let him demonstrate what he is capable of in action. I was already thinking to myself that not so long ago in the battle within, he did not notice any special opportunities. At that time, he was too focused on beating him, so his opponent did not have a chance to demonstrate his abilities. After which he began to incite him and tell him to come closer and show him his skills. Xiao indignantly asked what this pervert was doing. Does he really want to resist such a force? Is he tired of living? The guy replied that everything was fine and that she should not worry. The man shouted that this guy was just ridiculous, so if he wanted to die so much, then so be it. The cultivators noted that this energy is incredibly pure, so the guy definitely came to an end. No one can survive such an attack. Van wondered if this trash really decided to just try to repel such an attack. The guy noted that this skill was specially created for battles and consumes an extremely large amount of energy from the earth and heaven. His strength far exceeds that of any Truve realm cultivator. Even he would not dare to face such an attack head-on. The man shouted that the young man would definitely pay for humiliating him. He gives him one last chance to fall to his knees and beg for mercy. Maybe then he wouldn't burn his body completely to ashes. At that very second, the young man replied that he would not even think about doing this. The opponent shouted that in this case he would die a terrible death today. Common sense told him that it was necessary to dodge, but he must take this attack upon himself. A moment later, their forces clashed in equal opposition. The girl shouted that it was too dangerous, so let Xiaofan just leave there. Our hero thought it would be a little easier, but still he managed with such incredible power. The opponent shouted that his attempts were pointless, so let him give up or simply die. The young man replied that he was not going to do this and would fight to the end. The guy remembered the words of a Taoist monk that, by commanding the energies of the earth and heaven, a cultivator is able to move mountains and drain oceans. Chen shouted, "So what if he commands these energies? He himself will comprehend the Tao and ascend even above the heavens." Then he formed a punching fist and aimed it at his opponent. But the man dispelled it and said that our hero should not engage in this nonsense. The young man declared that he would collect all the divine energy and bring it down on his enemies, destroying everything in his path. The magical attack was so powerful that when it reached its target, a powerful explosion occurred. When the opponent fell to the ground, he began to shout that our hero should not even come close to him. The guy replied that there was no need to worry because he was not finished with him yet. After which, a large number of swords appeared above him, and no one understood what kind of technique this was. Then he unleashed all this powerful energy on the enemy, who was already almost defeated. Lying on the ground, completely exhausted, the man declared that the young man would answer him for everything. Those present could not believe their eyes that the cultivator of the Chuve kingdom was able to repel the strongest attack of the cultivator of the Chuchen kingdom. This is simply incredible. But there was something wrong with the young man, and he shouted that the girl should not come close to him. The young man was no longer able to hold back the power of the copper shard, and it seemed that he was on the verge of moving to the kingdom of Chuchen. Xiaofan immediately went to look for some place to hide as soon as possible. Landing in the forest, our hero began to feel simply incredible power. Paying attention to the clouds of smoke that were coming from the place where her friend should be, Xiao did not understand what was happening to him. After some time, the transformation was completed and the young man had the feeling that space was being distorted. When the young man began to soar above the ground, he was incredibly happy that he would finally no longer have to fly on a stupid sword. The young man flew up to Siwei and said that it was time for them to go back home. A friend noted that everything was fine with him, and he seemed to be feeling better. A couple of days later at UV Peak, the guy was thinking that now, with the support of Buddhist scriptures, he could almost match the strength of a Huanshan realm cultivator. And all this will be a very unpleasant surprise for his enemies. Then he noticed that the copper shard moved slightly and thought that something was wrong. Then he decided to try to banish the Buddhist sutra again and clearly felt that the fragment was moving. It was very hot and he didn't understand what was happening. Suddenly, a fragment sharply burst out of his physique. The guy decided to reward him for moving to a new kingdom, but he shouldn't have done it. But then, a large number of ancient scriptures appeared before him. After this, the copper fragment sharply burst back into the young man's body. This all meant that Xiao Fan had broken through to the second level of the Chuchen realm. He couldn't believe that it was so easy to reach the next level. Then he decided to go to the Celestial Maiden Peak and noted that this time he should take Lin Xiuan and Tan Yu with him so that they could gain experience. Our hero noted that the air shook strangely, as if something was nearby. Suddenly, a young man appeared from behind a tree, who said that he was actually a person and not something. Xiao Fan immediately grabbed him by the scruff of the neck and asked what he was doing here. Was he really spying on girls? Behind him, the guy heard the voice of Nin Men, who asked how he ended up here. Qin Lo immediately disappeared, and Qian replied that he had come to ask Xiao if she wanted to take a walk with him, after which he noticed that that guy had disappeared somewhere and began to look around in search of him, because he had just been there. Suddenly, the same guy appeared and greeted him warmly. Nin asked that shouldn't he be in training right now? She explained to our hero that this is Brother Sin, who is the main disciple of Tianyun Peak. Our hero replied that this cannot be, because the main students do not behave like that. The young man could not believe that he had met a more shameless person than himself. Then, Xiao Fan said that he would no longer disturb them and would go look for Siue. Min asked her to wait and offered to go together. Sin was very disappointed by this, because he had no idea that Xian was so popular among women. It's impossible for a guy to climb Tianu Peak just like that. He must find out what his secret is. Looking at the schedule, the young man noted that his girlfriend was busy, so she would not go anywhere with him. It seems that after all, we will have to go only with the young animals. Sin grabbed his leg and begged him to tell him what his secret was and how he gained access to the peak of the Heavenly Maiden. Our hero tried to unstick him from himself and said that he needed to choose a task. And he was distracting him, but no words had any effect on the guy. The guy immediately tore off one of the leaves and said that this was an excellent mission and a worthy reward. This was a ground-level mission near the Yin River. Xiao Fan replied that no, he would not drag his young protege on an earthly-level mission. You need to choose something else. But there were no other options, since absolutely everything had been dismantled. The young man was indignant that apparently everyone was just making fun of him. Our hero grabbed his head and screamed what he had done. Sin didn't pay attention to this and said that he didn't have to thank him since it wasn't hard for him. Just let him tell you how to get to the peak of the Heavenly Maiden. Jian hugged him and said that he wanted to choose something easier, but he handed him an earthly-level mission. For him, this is not a problem, but for Xiao Fan, it's still a bit too much, but he won't refuse to help him. The guy replied that he was too busy. You need to collect materials and all that. Our hero offered to bet that he has no idea how beautiful the girls live on that Tianu Peak. You only have to go up there once and you will never want to go back again. Quite recently, there was a rumor that an ancient tomb had opened in the gorge of the Yin River. They say that some madman allegedly built a giant tomb for himself 6,000 years ago, and it was opened only now, which attracted a lot of people from all over the world. 6 days later, our hero reached his destination, but he did not think that there would be so many people there. Qin went with him, but the guy only constantly distracted Xiao Fan. He only cared about the girls who were around them and constantly pulled Qian so that he looked at their forms. Realizing that the girls heard everything perfectly, the guy said that he did not know the person who was standing next to him. But the strangers got angry and said that they should be ashamed since real men don't behave like that. Then they decided not to waste their precious time on them and just left. When the fog began to dissipate, all the cultivators almost simultaneously began to run somewhere. Xiao Fan suggested going to see what was there, and they set off. Our hero noted that this place is very strange. The further you go, the thicker the fog. The companion noted that, on top of everything else, they had also left the path, so there were no people around at all. Then, some big guy came up to them and told them to get out of this path because Mrs. Sire decided to go along it, so let them disappear from his sight before he removed them himself. A man is not going to repeat himself twice, so let them leave with her for a second on good terms. When our hero asked if Sin had any ideas on how to deal with this, the young man replied that he could simply beat them. Xiao Fan replied that he had thought about it too, but he just didn't say it so directly. He doesn't want to humiliate them too much because there are fewer of them after all. Sin replied that he would take on this thug and he would take on everyone else. The woman was tired of listening to all this chatter, so she said to immediately get them out of the way. The big guy began to flex his fists and say that he had warned these guys. Noticing that the man was very serious, his friend asked if he was going overboard. Let him leave at least their corpses. The thug said that they don't even deserve this. Therefore, they are destined to die today. Having formed a fiery fist, Xu Yuan rushed to attack the young guys. Sin calmly and without particularly straining stopped him with just one hand. The young man said that his opponent today is he, not Xian. After which the guys started laughing and Qin exclaimed that you can bet that he'll make him fall to his knees and beg for mercy. Then Xiao Fan turned to everyone else and told them to start coming closer to him. He also shouted to the lady that he didn't particularly like to beat women, so let him go somewhere far away. The woman was very outraged by such impudence, so she ordered to deal with him immediately. The subordinates exclaimed that they understood everything and rushed to attack our hero. But none of them managed to even slightly hurt the young man as he quickly moved from place to place. The young man began to strike them one after another, and everyone was perplexed where the cultivator of the Chuchin kingdom got such speed. But they believed that no matter how strong he was, the attackers had already surrounded him, and there was nowhere else to run. When they tried to pierce him with a sword, they ran into a protective barrier. The men did not understand what this was. Was it really space manipulation? Our hero noted that, unfortunately, he has not yet learned how to attack with this, but for defense, it is just right. After which, the young man began to scatter them away from himself in different directions with the help of his abilities. Then he asked that this is really all they are capable of. How were they ever going to get them out of the way? The old man shouted that since the swords would not take him, then they would use something else. It's very interesting how the guy will cope with this. A huge block of stone quickly began to approach our hero. The young man noted to himself that, for cultivators from his own kingdom, they were surprisingly very strong. But Xiao Fan was also no stranger. He managed to learn something from the ancient scriptures, after which she formed an energy sphere from the bullet into what was approaching him. When the attack was repulsed, the attackers noted that this guy could fight on equal terms with the fairly strong cultivators of the Huanshan kingdom. Then the young man flew up and with all his strength punched the old man in the jaw, who tried to kill him. He simply scattered everyone else in different directions or gave them a kick in the ass. The woman went crazy and screamed, "How dare he beat her people? Does he even know who she is?" Sin exclaimed that he knew she was a woman. Our hero noted that he had already finished with that big guy. The lady was wildly infuriated by both of them, so she screamed that they both deserved to die. One of her subordinates noted that this is definitely the end. Even such a strong man cannot cope with the Great Seal. In terms of strength, it is almost no different from a precious spiritual weapon. When the seal began to fall on the young man, he noted that in his group, the girl had the lowest level of cultivation. But nevertheless, she was still entrusted with such a powerful spiritual weapon, although it still would not help them. After all, a young man with one blow can simply destroy it into small pieces. His new friend, watching the powerful explosion, noted that the young man was simply incredible. The opponents were shocked by what they saw because he broke the seal with his bare hands. What is this guy's body made of anyway? Even a Huanshan realm cultivator can't do this. The girl screamed, "How dare he destroy her great seal? He actually knows who she is." The guy can't even imagine whose daughter he got involved with. The guy replied that he was somehow absolutely not interested in who her father actually was. Then he asked Sin if he wanted to know the name of his future father-in-law. The guy was surprised that which side was even featured in this conversation. The woman became completely furious and hissed that she would scratch his eyes. The subordinate tried to calm her down and said that they did not have a single chance against them. "So you just need to retreat for now." The girl shouted that, "Let him live for now, but do not forget that Sire's family will not leave this so easily." Finally, one of them said that today Tian insulted someone who shouldn't have. Let him be sure that he will regret what he did. They are far from the strongest in their family. Others will come instead, and then he won't have as much fun. The young man wondered if they could be somehow connected with Xia Fenmin. Sin shouted after them that he hoped they would meet again and let the lady remember to call her father. Our hero began to get angry and said that it was enough to fool around because it was time for them to move on. After a while, his companion asked if he thought it was too quiet around him. Qian replied that he agreed. It even became somehow very uncomfortable. It seemed like there should be a lot of people around, but apart from that group, they didn't see anyone else. Suddenly, the guy screamed and said that there was a ghost behind him. Xiao Fan said, "Isn't it a shame for a cultivator to play such stupid pranks?" Sin replied that what kind of pranks are there? He really saw a ghost. The young man did not believe him and said that he should come up with something better. Then he understood what his companion was talking about, since he also saw an otherworldly force. Why did they both start shouting that they saw a ghost who stood and smiled? But for some reason they decided that each of them was just making fun of the other. The guys stood back to back in order to have a greater viewing angle. Then they shouted for the spirit to immediately appear. Suddenly, none other than zombies began to crawl from all sides. A friend noted that some of them looked very familiar. They saw them in the river gorge. The only problem is that they were alive then. The guys realized that there was nothing left but to run away as quickly as possible. After some time, our hero asked if Sin recognized these places. The guy replied that he didn't see anything familiar at all, and because of the thick fog, he is not even able to sense his presence. It now became clear to the young man why the mission was assigned an earthly level. He definitely couldn't have done it alone. They had not yet even entered the tomb, but had already been exposed to danger more than once. Sin pointed to a huge structure and asked if this was the tomb he was talking about. The companion noted that it didn't really look like a burial place, more like a castle. Our hero noted that they had finally reached the right place. Suddenly, a man appeared near them, begging for help, but suddenly he was overtaken by an otherworldly force that pierced his body. The guys saw that this creature had torn out the poor young man's heart and was devouring it. With a cry, which this monster decided to laugh at, our hero rushed to attack him. When Qian got to the place where the monster was sitting, he was no longer there. The guy was taken aback because he couldn't keep up with him even with illusory steps. Xiao Fan asked his friend if he saw where that monster ran away. But Sin, unfortunately, did not have time to notice this. The young man noted that there was nothing left but to go inside the tomb. Entering the room, the guys saw that there was a whole bunch of evil spirits and everyone was looking at them. Our hero sarcastically asked that the main disciple of Tianyuan Peak was really afraid of a couple of creatures. The guy replied that he would have bought into his provocation if he had not seen how his legs were shaking from fear. Our hero asked not to disgrace him in front of the readers. Suddenly, a zombie appeared near them. Qian was not taken aback and immediately kicked him in the head. But there were more and more of them and, it seems, they had absolutely no intention of stopping. When Sin asked what the plan would be this time, the guy replied that they had no other option but to beat them up. The guys immediately began to attack them, using their magical abilities. The young man fought them off as best he could, but they began to attack more than one at a time. Insert back to back. A friend noted that these damn zombies are weak alone, but strong in a group. They have been fighting for a long time, and there are not even fewer of them, so something needs to be done urgently. Xiao Fan decided to use the 13 blades of the pure moon technique. In the blink of an eye, otherworldly creatures were cut into several pieces. Sin shouted that things were bad because he felt a group of strong evil spirits very nearby. Our hero noted that the very creature that attacked them outside appeared. Without thinking twice, our hero rushed to attack this creature, shouting why he was laughing then. But the monster dodged the attack and jumped into the air. The young man exclaimed that it moved too predictably. Then he cut off his hand with his sword. The guy noted that it only knows how to fight and nothing else. Suddenly, the surviving zombies began to run away in different directions, and Sin did not understand why they were running away. They are kind of strange. They just took it and left. Then Xiao Fan approached him and said that it was enough to stand around chilling. It was time to move on. Near one of the corridors, they saw a pile of corpses. The satellite noted that it seemed to be quite dangerous there. Qian replied that he is not blind and sees everything perfectly with his own eyes. The guys had no idea whether any of those who ended up there were alive, but it was still necessary to move on. When they entered the room, they saw an artifact called the soul lamp. The fuel that powers the soul lamp is squeezed out of the cultivator's soul. They say that such a lamp can burn for tens of thousands of years without any problems. The young man did not understand where such a treasure came from in this place. Sin said that creating this lamp requires an extremely strong cultivation base. stronger than what heaven allows a person to achieve, so anyone who is in any way connected with it promises very bad luck. Our hero got angry and shouted why he decided to tell about it only now. Then he asked that this tomb was not built by a madman. Would he do something like that? Plus, there were very interesting drawings on the walls, and Qian clarified whether Sin understood anything in them. The guy said no, but he thinks that the drawing is much older than the one who built this place, because such ornaments were not characteristic of any of the known eras of the past. Having picked up the bowl from the floor, our hero said that someone had left a dog bowl there. Perhaps the local architect was a relative of Sin, but the guy was talking to some girl and asking where her parents were. Maybe it's worth escorting her to the exit. The little girl replied that, in that case, she would have to finish him off. The young man exclaimed that she was worried about him, and that was very sweet. Qian became very uneasy, and he no longer understood what was happening. After all, where could a little girl come from in an ancient tomb? Seeing the cup in the hands of our hero, the baby screamed that she had finally found it. How could she even forget her in this room? When she ordered the young man to return this cup to her, our hero asked if she really lived in this tomb. Having looked at her carefully, the guy began to think that she was somehow connected with the drawings on the wall. So I thought that something was wrong here. He changed his mind about giving her the bowl and said that he found it on the floor. Maybe it wasn't hers at all. Then he asked why she needed it at all. The little girl immediately became gloomy and said to give her this cup, otherwise she would kill him. The young man began to throw it from hand to hand and ask what would happen if it broke. The girl began to get nervous, asking him to stop and put her on the ground. After thinking a little, the baby decided to tell everything. More recently, the seal on this tomb has weakened greatly. Because of this, evil spirits began to actively appear in the area. To seal them again, she came to this place in the hope of finding something that would help restore the seal. And the cup in his hands is precisely capable of returning it to its original state. The young man thought that this seemed to be true, and it seemed that they would complete the task much faster than he thought. But suddenly the vessel began to slip out of his hands and fall down. His friend tried to catch it, but did not have time, and the bowl broke into pieces. Sin said that, after all, she warned him that misfortunes would haunt him. Our hero held him by the scruff of the neck and was angry that he didn't catch it. Suddenly, the girl began to look not at all cute and hissed that the two of them would pay for her cup. The guys tried to calm her down and said that now everything would be explained to her. But the little girl exclaimed that this could be explained, now they will just die, and that's all. When the guys were running away from the angry child, one lamented that how could they not have caught this damn bowl, and the other that how could they have dropped it on the floor. They tried to shift the blame onto each other, and Qian said that it was all because of Sin, since there was nothing to talk about bad luck, and he said in response that there was no point in touching the damned lamp. Suddenly, it turned out that they had come running to a dead end. There were absolutely no doors. Qian exclaimed that there must be a secret passage somewhere, because he had seen such a thing in the movies. Then a powerful energy stream flew towards them. Between them, exactly in the middle, there was a huge smoking hole. The girl said that they would pay for breaking her cup. The guys tried to calm her down and explain everything so that she would forgive them. A friend asked what the plan would be this time, whether to fight again. Our hero exclaimed that he believes in them and together they will overcome any difficulties in their way. When the girl again said that they would pay her for the cup, the young man said that, with what joy she decided to order them. Qian thought that this brat would definitely be impressed by his unshakable confidence and give in. The friend noted that he only angers her, and such a plan does not work at all. The little girl replied that they themselves knew very well how valuable that cup was. If they don't want to die, then let them pay her for her loss. The young man sharply put his hand forward and told her to wait just 1 second, after which he began to shout that it was all because of Sin, because he could not catch this vessel. The friend was extremely angry and exclaimed that this was really his magnificent plan. For some time, the girl stood and listened as they shifted the blame onto each other, and when she got tired of it, she said that they were useless garbage and that she would rather just eat them whole. Then she asked what their last words would be. The guys began to cry and beg for mercy, saying that they were still so young and had their whole lives ahead of them. But the little girl was tired of listening to all these excuses, and she said that they talk too much, so let them just finally die. Looking at this magical construction, the guys did not understand what to do. Xiao Fan ordered his friend to hide behind him. When a powerful energy flow headed towards them, it collided with a protective barrier. The girl did not understand what was happening, as if the space in front of these two simply froze, while the guys were happy that they were alive. The little one decided that she would just send their sealed tomb. Maybe this way the dark energy will weaken slightly. When the baby said that, she would give them one last chance. Our hero exclaimed that, no, it's not that simple. They agreed to do anything, but let her promise to leave them alone after that. The girl said that their last chance is behind them. Sin objected that it was just a wall. The little one replied that it was exactly like that. So let them stop staring at her and start acting, otherwise she will finish them off. The young man immediately grabbed his sword and said that everything will happen now. After some time, our hero managed to break through a passage in the wall. Looking there, the young man had some kind of bad feeling about all this. The guy asked that weren't the evil spirits sealed here. The girl replied that everything was correct. Here also lies their chance to atone for the broken cup. Chin exclaimed that she had not gone crazy for an hour. He sends them to the very center of the broken seal and also calls it an opportunity. The little girl replied that the cup was no longer there, which meant they were the only ones who could fix the seal. And if they can't, then she won't leave a wet spot for them. Our hero objected that she was stronger than them. If she didn't succeed, then they certainly won't be able to cope with it. The little one replied that she would stop whining. They still have no other options. The young man screamed in despair because he absolutely did not want to die young. Then he replied that okay, she can kill them, just let her do it quickly. The little girl was tired of listening to all this, so she simply pushed them down the cliff and said that they should shut up and finally go down there. Once downstairs, the friend asked what they would do next because it seemed that another evil spirit was about to escape from the coffin. Rubbing his back, Tian cursed that little brat. Then he answered that what options do they have? They will not be able to fight him, so all that remains is to look for a way out. Sin noted that he was right, after which a door caught their eye and they wondered whether they could open it. But no matter how the guys tried to open it, they couldn't do anything at all. After some time, they noted that the door did not even move. Therefore, we urgently need to come up with something. Otherwise, Xiao Fan is not particularly eager to fight with an otherworldly creature. Then our hero added that he shouldn't have grabbed that damn mission, but should have listened to him first. Sin replied that it was too late to look for the guilty. It is better to think about how not to become food for an evil spirit. A moment later, a creature appeared from the crypt, laughing menacingly and saying that finally he, whose name is Hu Han-san, will be able to take possession of this tomb. The young man said that it is not harmful to dream because, unfortunately for him, they will interfere with his plans. A friend asked if our hero wanted to seal him again alone. The young man replied that, of course not. Then he added that they seal it together. Sin shouted that he must be just making fun of him. The guy asked if he hadn't heard what that brat said. Besides, he still wants to see Xiao, so dying in the tomb is not an option at all. The friend exclaimed that the brother said it well, so they must seal up this evil spirit. The otherworldly creature said that for such small fry, the two of them are too impudent. The young man was about to attack the evil spirit with the help of his magical abilities. But feeling that something was wrong, he turned around and saw that our hero was simply standing to the side. The young man shouted that why the hell did he stand there and do nothing? Qian exclaimed that he didn't actually say to run at him, so where did he rush in the first place? The spirit could not stand it and said that enough chatting, let them finally fight. Our hero replied that he would listen to him and in the blink of an eye was behind him with the devil's sword. The spirit noted that this was not bad, but managed to deftly dodge. The guy asked in surprise how he managed to avoid the attack. The creature replied that it was simply too slow, after which the monster struck Shin with his fist directly in the solar plexus. The young man did not waste time and again rushed to attack him in order to deliver another blow. But, unexpectedly, the otherworldly creature simply grabbed the sword with his hand and blocked the blow. Then he stated that he would now demonstrate to them all the difference in strength between them. The young man could hardly resist this attack and told Sin that he could use some help. The young man immediately used his spiritual weapon and tried to attack the evil spirit, but he failed. The creature admitted that they still know something, but this is not enough to close the difference in cultivation. If this is all they are capable of, then you won't envy them. But suddenly, an otherworldly force saw that they simply ran away from him somewhere while she was talking and not looking in their direction. On the way, our hero said that if they survive, then let him not dare to talk to him about failures anymore. The friend replied that he need not thank him for saving his life. Qian said that he would not have had to be saved if he had fought better than some girl. Sin replied that they wouldn't have had to fight at all if he hadn't broken that stupid cup. Xiaofan replied that if he had not talked about the failures, he might have broken that vessel. The guy objected that he didn't say anything like that, but simply told about the legend. Then they heard some voices and decided to go see what was happening there because perhaps something had happened. There they saw a huge hall, but it was not the one they entered at the very beginning. Also, the guys did not understand why there were so many people there and why some of them were lying on the ground. The girl was surprised that they both got there not from outside, but from the tomb. The man asked how he could help them. Our hero carefully asked if it was because of him that those two were lying on the ground. The guy said that they were disciples who followed Chi Teng's elder brother, but were poisoned by zombies. Tsi was righteous enough to guarantee everyone's safety by dealing with them himself. Teng helped free the souls of 2 cultivators. The righteousness of the elder brother is an example for all of them. Our hero said that in this case, they will not bother them all, since they have plenty of their own things to do. But suddenly his friend said that it seemed they would not be able to leave there. The exit from the main hall to the outside was closed by some force, and it seems that the people who are in this room are trapped. Hearing some noise, one of the men said that they needed to be careful because something was approaching them. It turned out that it was an invasion of zombies, of which there were more and more. Qian noted that he fell into a trap immediately after escaping. Apparently, heaven really wants to kill him. Sin exclaimed that he must be being bullied. There were beautiful women waiting for him outside, so how could he be stuck in this place? Our hero replied that if he wants to see more beautiful women, then he must not hold back now. Therefore, they need to unite now and do everything possible. Then, all the cultivators present engaged in battle with the dead. The young man noticed that a zombie was trying to sneak up on his friend from behind. Therefore, he quickly flew up to him so that he could not harm Sin. When he saw the creature he had encountered initially, he exclaimed that he had almost forgotten about him. The monster looked at him and began to quickly run away. Our hero shouted, "Stand," and launched 13 moon swords at him. But the otherworldly creature managed to return from his attack again. But our young man overtook him and pierced his body with a fiery sword. Then he pushed his body with his foot and said that he had sent him to the Eastern Paradise. A friend noted that it felt like these zombies were just endless and would never end. One of the cultivators said that Brother Sai was truly worthy of being the Violet Sect's senior disciple. He is one of the strongest in his generation. This is simply amazing. Suddenly, the very spirit from which our heroes were running appeared before him, and he did not understand what it was all about. The creature hissed menacingly for all these self-confident kids to go straight to hell. Meanwhile, the battle with the zombies continued, and CI demonstrated all his skills. Then she noticed that his student could barely cope with the overwhelming force. The evil spirit noted that they all clearly overestimate their own strength. At the same instant, the young man's spiritual weapon broke into several pieces and he began to fall down. Qian noted that this spirit is very strong, and even a cultivator of a level higher than theirs could not cope with it. Sin asked what they should do now. The girl who watched all this noted that she did not expect these two to be so strong. But that's okay. They may not try. They still cannot escape their death. Noticing her, the young man shouted why she was just standing and watching from there. Let him go to them and help so they can win. The baby demonstrated that he couldn't see that she couldn't get to them. Only a madman master knows how to seal a shadow, and this is like glass, a barrier that was specially installed. She can't go out, and they will all die in that room. The young man shouted that in this case, the baby could try to break the barrier for now, and in the meantime, they would hold their spirit. The baby noted that if you help, there will be a chance to seal the creature. Therefore, she shouted that she agreed and would help him this time, but he must remember what he owed her. The young man shouted that he knew and should hurry up. Noticing that everyone had somehow fled in different directions, the creature said that these guys seemed to be the only ones who want to try to detain him. Therefore, now the otherworldly force will demonstrate to them everything that it is capable of. Suddenly, some special zombies appeared, which were clearly different from everyone else. A very strong and simply terrifying aura emanated from them, and they looked quite unusual. Our hero noted that they have no choice but to fight with all their might. Meanwhile, the epic battle with ordinary zombies still did not end. A creature suddenly approached one of the cultivators from above in order to attack. Sin stood up to defend the confused guy and asked if he was okay. After which, he struck the words of the spirit with his spiritual weapon and shouted, "Die!" Noticing that his friend was sitting down and holding his hand, the young man went to him and asked what had happened to him. The guy replied that he was slightly wounded, but he would not be able to hold out for very long. Suddenly, Tsi approached them and said that their situation at the moment was so-so. Therefore, if the young man cannot cope with this, then he can help. The young man asked what he was going to do. Let him not even think about it. The man explained that this man was infected with zombies, and he wants to do it for the sake of all of them. Another cultivator supported him and told our hero to get out of his way. His friend was infected. This threat must be eliminated. Teng, in order to ensure everyone's safety, accepted this pain and sent his own brother to a better world, for the sake of everyone's safety. This is for the benefit of everyone else, so let him just understand them. Qian turned to Sin and said that not only did this guy hurt him, but he also talks a lot. Not only is he not grateful, but he also wants to hurt him.
According to Xiaofan, he is the one who should be killed at this time.
Let the young man get out of here immediately if he wants to live longer. As for Teng, as a role model, he is simply ridiculous. In his eyes, the man is simply a heartless and selfish villain. Since the situation was already tense, our hero told Sin to eat the plant that he gave him. The young man did not believe with his own eyes that Xiaofan had the root of the immortal spirit. Teng was also very surprised that this guy had such an amazing treasure. Qin began to say that he did not expect such generosity from him. Our hero replied that he should stop chatting and heal his wounds as soon as possible. As soon as the young man swallowed these stems, he immediately began to inhale. Sai said that, as expected from the ancient king of medicine, in such a short period of time, his wounds, which were exactly like his, had practically disappeared. Then he said that if his friend could take such a wonderful herb, then why not share it with everyone else? He is confident that they will all forever remember Qian's generosity. Another cultivator exclaimed that indeed with this medicine they would have a chance to get out of this tomb. Doesn't our hero think the same way? If he has such high-quality herbs, then he simply has to share with everyone else. The man said that he also completely agreed. It could even enhance their cultivation and cultivation. Voices began to be heard from all sides, telling him to quickly get this medicine and share it with them. Everyone should get their part. They will never forget his kindness. The young man began to get angry and exclaimed, "What kindness are they even talking about? They just wanted to kill them, and now they wanted to get the root of the immortal spirit. A powerful enemy is now in front of them, and they have time to look at other people's treasures. This is all just ridiculous." While Teng was saying that, was he really going to kill them? Behind him, an advanced zombie was creeping up on him, but the man noticed him and with one movement of his hand neutralized the enemy. After which he declared that if he did not give them these herbs, they would break the law. When the zombie exclaimed that now they will kill everyone, his owner stopped him and said that let the people kill each other, and then they will take their treasures. They're all a bunch of self-righteous fools. They should be concerned about a serious enemy, but instead they are driven only by their own desires. How can they be called a prestigious sect if, at the sight of treasures, they forget about the cost of their own lives? Meanwhile, a spear was thrown at the young man, but he managed to deftly dodge it. Our hero did not waste time and struck back with a powerful blow, after which Teng was left lying on the ground and unconscious. Sin exclaimed that how dare these self-righteous hypocrites do such a thing? Our hero said that he has not yet fully recovered, so let him not overexert himself. The guy replied that it doesn't matter because they irritate him wildly. They are just a bunch of pathetic trash that could not defeat Xiaofan one by one and decided to attack in a crowd. The cultivators rushed to the attack, shouting that together they could take the root of the immortal spirit. The young man repulsed this attack with the help of his spiritual weapon, shouting that today they will all die because of their hypocrisy. Another worldly force simply watched this and said that let them all quickly kill each other themselves. When they all die, the evil spirit will be able to recover and remove the seal from the tomb. Meanwhile, the girl tried to break the protective barrier, but nothing worked. She didn't understand why they were doing such nonsense. The spirit hasn't even demonstrated its full power yet, and they don't seem to take it seriously. Once he recovers, it will all be over. When some of the cultivators were destroyed, cries were heard from everywhere that this young man himself was a devil from the underworld. An otherworldly force stated that it was simply an amazing show. He's almost finished his recovery, so it's time to put an end to all this. After this, hands appeared around the protective barrier and grabbed it tightly. The baby screamed that things were bad. It urgently needs to be stopped. If the spirit reaches the door of light, then they will all definitely die. Our hero shouted that he understood everything and launched 13 balls of the pure moon at them. But the desired effect did not happen, and they simply broke into small pieces. After which, the spirit declared that he was too self-confident. Did he really think this could stop him? When he receives the wooden amulet, he will celebrate it on their corpses. They can only wait in this room for their death. The young man shouted to Sin that it was necessary to run there, since this demon could not be allowed to get what he wanted. Finally, the girl managed to cope with the seal, and she shouted that she would help them cope with all this. The little girl was immediately attacked by zombies, but she easily dealt with them without making almost any effort. Then she rushed after the guys, because she couldn't let the spirit take the wooden amulet, even if she had to risk her own life. The surviving cultivators looked after them in complete bewilderment. A moment later, the portal closed. Once on the other side, Jian asked if his friend was okay. He gave him another immortal spirit root. Therefore, let him accept it immediately.
The guy replied that this plant is incredibly valuable, and his brother is just giving it away like some kind of garbage. He is afraid that he will not be able to bear such kindness.
Then they heard some noise near them and noted that this was the same group of zombies that had been chasing them. The guy asked what Xiao Fan was going to do. Hieroglyphs appeared around our hero, and he declared that he had a couple of cards hidden up his sleeve in order to ward them off. This is the real power of Buddhist texts, which contain a lot of wisdom. When a little girl suddenly appeared, the young man exclaimed why she didn't warn her that she was coming. His heart almost stopped. The little girl told him to stop because the door of light was open and the evil spirit was already in search of the wooden amulet. She must stop him, otherwise the entire catacombs will be under his control. She began to explain that it was necessary to go to one point. Following the corridor, they will need to turn left after about 50 meters. There will be a hidden mechanism in the wall closer to the corner. The necessary thing is to click on it and they will see a cave. It's safe there now, and there are medicines that cure zombie poison. With their strength, they will be able to get out alive after some respite. Chen thanked her for the information she provided and asked what she herself was going to do. The girl replied that she would go and stop the evil spirit. These catacombs are her home, and she will never give it up to some dead man. The guys immediately thanked the eldest for the chance and set off along the indicated path. She replied that the guys should hurry to heal their wounds. The baby will be waiting for their help a little later. After some time, they found the necessary point and began to make their way into the cave. Sin exclaimed that he had a feeling that our hero had already been to this place. The young man told him to close his mouth and climb further. Seeing a huge bowl in front of him, Xiao Fan told his friend to treat his wounds as soon as possible. On the vessel, there was a spiritualistic sign that protects against unwanted guests. After touching, the magic cup began to work and restore the strength of the children. Sin that thanks to his immortal spirit root, most of his wounds were healed. But what does he plan to do next? Our hero replied that there was nothing else he could do other than go and stop the evil spirit. The guy replied that if he is interested in someone else's opinion, then he believes that they have completed their mission and at the moment there is an excellent chance to just leave. But Xian answered briefly, no. The young man replied that he could not help but keep his word. And if he does this, then how will he differ from those hypocrites? Hearing some noise very close to them, our heroes immediately rushed in that direction. They noticed the remains of grey blood on the floor and decided that if they followed the trail, it would not be difficult to find it. Apparently, the baby was seriously injured, so it is necessary to get to her as soon as possible. Meanwhile, she fought with an otherworldly force, which said that she should stop resisting because she could not defeat him. Baby answered that she knew it from the very beginning, but even if she dies, he still won't receive the master's wooden amulet. The creature replied that it could not believe that such a pathetic little dog would be so devoted to a dead man. Since she is so stubborn, then let her go straight to hell to her master. The baby began to cover herself with her hand and was preparing to meet her death, because the forces were unequal. But suddenly the attack was repelled by a fiery spear that came from out of nowhere. Our hero shouted to the creature not to forget that they were still in this tomb. Another worldly force noted that 2 more ants had arrived, who decided that they could stop him. The girl exclaimed that why did they come back? Had they really gone completely crazy? The young man replied that he would not leave until he repaid her debt. The little girl exclaimed that even the best cultivators from noble sex would have a hard time defeating him. The guy noted to himself that he was really incredibly strong, because from one blow his spear cracked. The otherworldly force exclaimed that it does not matter how many ants get in his way, because they will all die anyway. After which he attacked the young man with his magical power. The little girl screamed that things were very bad, so let them immediately get out of this room. The young man did not have time to dodge because the attack was too fast and therefore hit the target. The creature exclaimed that he could not withstand even one blow, so what did he even count on? Sin shouted that such a non-entity, how he should be destroyed. Another worldly force asked how he even dared to open his mouth. He is burning with impatience and wants to play with him too. It turned out that it was just a distracting maneuver, and at that time, our hero and the girl rushed to attack him together. The monster noticed this and asked if he really decided to deceive him a second time. Flying up to him with the devilish sword, our hero said that this time the end had definitely come for him and he was not lying. It was simply funny for the otherworldly force to hear all this, since he understood that their powers were not equal. The little girl shouted that he should not even dream that he could emerge victorious from this battle. In the air, she transformed into an animal and covered our hero with herself. The young man clearly did not expect such a turn of events and looked at her with his mouth open. The little girl exclaimed that he was a real slowdown, and what were he waiting for? Let him start acting. The young man immediately replied that he understood everything and used his magical technique. Looking at the huge plumes of smoke that appeared after the attack, his friend asked if he was okay. Suddenly, a young man appeared from the epicenter of the explosion along with a girl. Xiaofan said that the power of this ghost is too strong. They are still alive only thanks to her help. The little girl replied that she was very sorry that he decided to return again. Meanwhile, Sin watched in bewilderment what was happening and could not believe his eyes. After such a powerful attack, otherworldly power began to recover. The guy screamed that this simply couldn't happen because he wasn't dead yet. The creature said that they would have a hard time dealing with him. They only managed to hurt him a little. This action forces him to use all his power, which he has not yet demonstrated to its fullest. After which, a large number of magical cutlasses appeared around him, and he declared that they would not leave a wet spot. Our hero was not going to give up and replied that he could not be killed so easily and called on one of the fire spear techniques. The creature said that in this case he would go to the underworld right now. A moment later, their forces clashed in a fierce confrontation. The young man simply could not believe his eyes, but his technique was not up to the task, and everything was fine with the monster. The evil spirit stated that this ant, of course, is not bad and has learned many techniques, but unfortunately, he is not as strong as he would like. Behind the monster, there was a cry that he would finish him off today. It was Sin, who charged with his spiritual weapon. Let this arrogant demon feel the full power of his blade. The evil spirit exclaimed that they really still had not realized that they would not succeed. Sin's spiritual manifestation was destroyed in a couple of seconds. The guy did not understand how he could so easily repulse his strongest blow. Then something began to appear from the door of light, and our heroes did not understand what it was and what he was doing. At the sight of this artifact, the little girl screamed that this was the same tree amulet. They can't let him have this wood artifact of her master. An otherworldly force asked that these ants really believed in themselves so much that they decided that they could steal the tree amulet from him. All of them here can only die and nothing more. Therefore, let them not show off. Grabbing the tree amulet, the monster exclaimed that now it belonged only to him. Suddenly, a spear pierced his hand and he howled in pain. The young man exclaimed for the girl to take advantage of the moment and release her animal. At the same instant, the baby transformed and rushed towards the wooden amulet in order to catch it. The demon said that if they consider themselves winners, they are very deeply mistaken, because only now will the real show begin. An otherworldly force launched its magic towards the girl and shouted for her to give up what belongs to him. The baby ran, trying to dodge these energy balls, after which she threw the artifact towards the young man and told him to catch it. Meanwhile, the evil spirit was raging and shouting that the tree amulet could only belong to him. When the baby, completely exhausted, flew to the floor, Sin exclaimed that everything was fine and he would catch her. After that, he noted that it seems that the demon is very angry now. They have the wood amulet, so you need to get out of there as soon as possible. The monster shouted what they thought they were. Let him immediately give up what belongs to him. Observing all this, the young man told them to find shelter, and in the meantime, he would try to detain him. The evil spirit began to slowly walk towards him and threateningly tell him to return the tree amulet to him immediately. Otherwise, everything would end badly for him. Xiaofan noted that a similar copper fragment resonated with a tree amulet. Then he said that if the monster wants to take away this artifact that he needs so much, then let him just come up and take it. And if he likes it so much, then the young man will simply give it to him. Then he pulled out the amulet in front of him. The wooden figure immediately began to operate and destroy the otherworldly force. His friends were simply shocked by what they saw and did not understand how our hero managed to do this. The guy noted that the power of this artifact is incredibly great. The ghost who was capable of crushing even the realm of a human emperor was killed in the blink of an eye after just one encounter with him. His friend asked if he really managed to kill that powerful evil spirit. Qian is too good. If he knows how to use it, then let him teach him too. Xiaofan responded that he doesn't really know what happened or how it works. He just suddenly managed to release his powers. The girl thanked him for saving her. Then the young man handed her this relic and said that it rightfully belonged to her. The little girl asked in surprise what he was doing. The guy replied that this wood amulet was not an artifact of her master. Now it must return to its original owner. Baby asked that he really didn't need it. Our hero replied that no more, because he had already used it for its intended purpose. She already helped them a lot, so he should belong to her. Then he told his friend that it was time for them to go back. Perhaps one day their time will come and they will be able to get it. Sin exclaimed that this was all. He's probably joking. Why doesn't he keep it? Let him give it to him then. The young man was tired of listening to this chatter, so he grabbed him by the hand and began to drag him along. The young man began to be indignant and say that he could walk just fine. The baby was very happy to get what once belonged to her master, but there was only one thought in her head. Having weighed all the pros and cons, she ran after the guys and asked them to wait a second. Then she asked where they were going. Maybe she should be their bodyguard. The guys said great. In this case, it is time to return to Emperor Tianchun. Meanwhile, a young man ran behind Xiao Xue and shouted what a wonderful coincidence this was. The girl asked in surprise why he was there. This was Qian Yufgen, who was the chief disciple of Tianxin Peak. The young man exclaimed that he had been waiting for her for a very long time. The young man approached her closely and began to ask where she was going. If she decides to go for a walk, then he wants to go with her. But suddenly, someone's strong hand grabbed him by the face and pushed him aside. It was Qian who said he came back and asked who this guy even was. The other cultivators did not like his behavior, and they shouted why he was behaving this way with the main disciple of Tianxin Peak because he was supposed to greet him and report his arrival to the right place. The young man asked his friend if he knew who he was because he had heard absolutely nothing about him. The guy replied that he didn't know anything either. Xiaofan replied that no one knows who he is or where he is from. Nowadays, a lot of people like to pretend to be big shots, but no one has ever heard of them. The girl laughed at what she heard and realized that she was very bored. The guy escaped from his tenacious hands and thought that this impudent person dared to humiliate him in front of a beautiful lady. Therefore, now let him not accuse him of cruelty. The young man said that all this does not matter, because today he met this wonderful girl and is glad about it. So he will not pay attention to his rudeness. He then took out the golden pills and told Suo that he specifically asked for them from the respected master in order to give them to her. Our hero was extremely outraged by this, and he thought that after these few golden pills, he really expected to be able to recapture his lady and impress her. He won't succeed. He then turned to Xiaofan and asked what he could use to beat these golden pills. Or he thinks that these are ordinary gummies. It will be interesting to see what he is worth. When the young man began to take out everything he had, his opponent's eyes simply began to pop out of his head. What he saw threw him back, and he fell to the ground, shouting that this was too much. His subordinates worriedly asked if he was okay. The girl asked in surprise where he got so many first-class spiritual items from. The guy replied that he was just lucky. The girls passing by also noticed this mountain of treasures and wondered how he managed to get them. The young man said that each lady could choose one spiritual item and take it away. Chen Yufgen did not understand how this was possible and why he had so much property. Having not heard any answer from his subordinates, he noticed that they were simply drooling at what they saw, because they also wanted to get something. The guy freaked out and said that he was actually talking to them, but they were doing something unclear. Taking one of the artifacts into his hands, the young man said that this is the best item specifically for Suo. The girl thanked him for his kindness, but said that she could not accept such an expensive gift. The young man insisted that she still take him for herself. Meanwhile, Yufgen thought to himself that all the attention of this goddess should be paid only to him. But because of this boy, he experienced only one humiliation. Chen can't just leave it like that. Therefore, he exclaimed that it was enough. Of course, it's great to have a lot of spiritual items, but he was just lucky. Then he asked how about trying one of them with him in practice. The young man wearily stated what he needed from him. This guy can't even beat his pet. So what are they counting on? Then he told Xiao to move away so that she would not get hurt while he dealt with this self-confident, pompous turkey. The girl asked him to be careful. The enemy indignantly asked what he had just dared to call him. After which, he threw a spear at him and said that he needed to prepare for his death and not chatter. Sue exclaimed for the young man to take care of himself. Our hero replied that she should not worry because the opponent was not strong enough to somehow harm him. Then he ordered his new pet Xiao Bei to attack him and beat him to a pulp. The young man shouted that he would immediately first destroy this small animal and then grind its owner into powder. Not a single launched spear hit the target, as Bei very deftly dodged them. The guy was simply shocked and did not understand how this was possible because few people managed to avoid damage from such blows. After which it was the animal's turn to attack, and it easily knocked him down. While the subordinates were jumping around the young man and asking if everything was okay with him, Bei stood in a victorious position and thought that it was simply not worth messing with her. The young man muttered exhaustedly that this force is the most powerful in the supreme kingdom of people. Then they all cowardly ran away, shouting that one day they would show him all their power and take revenge for this shame. Our hero noted that, indeed, if they are not able to defeat him, then it is better for them to run away. Then he patted his new pet on the head and said that it was just a wonderful job. The girls were delighted with the new animal, and they began to ask what kind of dog this was, whose strength was equal to the imperial kingdom. This pet is very strong, and they want the same for themselves. Meanwhile, Xiao Bai approached the chick and thought to herself in surprise that this was simply impossible and this could not happen. The bird also seemed to recognize her, but they did not say anything to each other and continued to silently look eye to eye. Sue stated that it was good that he returned just in time. She heard that the fairy peach trees were about to bloom. They will be able to enjoy the spring blooms and have fun. Then she asked if he wanted to join them. One of the girls said that in fact they had been ready to go there for a long time, but Sister Xiao decided to wait until he returned in order to go there together. Sue blushed and exclaimed that this was not true. Taole Lina is a great place for different opportunities. Then she asked what he thought about this and whether he would go with them or not. Qian replied that since they invited him, then, of course, he would go, but only when he finished his business. Let them wait a little, and the guy will return soon. After some time, the young man ran to the girl and said that everything was all right. He finished all his business, and now they can hit the road. He was noticed by old acquaintances who wondered why their older brother was so lucky at 16. They are very jealous of him and want to be like him. A couple of hours later, they reached the place for observing the spring peach blossoms. During lunch, the young man accidentally overheard a conversation at the next table. People were discussing that this ancient fairy tree was a strange thing from ancient times. It blooms only once every 10 years. If a person has the opportunity to comprehend Taoism, then he will definitely fly into the sky in the future. The man who taught Xivi many years ago has felt the traces of Taoism and is now set to become emperor. He was able to reach unprecedented heights. Xue asked our hero not to stuff himself with food so much and to eat more slowly. The young man laughed and said that the food was simply very tasty. After which he asked Xiao whether this ancient fabulous tree was really so amazing. The girl replied that, of course, if he felt even a little trace of Taoism, then he could speed up his cultivation. Then they noticed that Dao Yun was beginning to flourish. Everyone must concentrate as quickly as possible and prepare to learn. You can't waste your time. The young man exclaimed that the fabulous peach tree was about to bloom, so it was necessary to go to it immediately. The appearance of the tree was truly amazing and seemed somehow magical. The young man began to feel the movement of a copper fragment in his chest. Those present noted that the flowering began just a couple of minutes ago, and Xiaofan had already begun to realize everything. How is this even possible? Suddenly, our hero was transported to the world of the gods, but he still did not fully realize where exactly he was. If you have watched this far, I am very grateful to you. I hope you enjoyed this video because I put a lot of effort into creating it. I would be very grateful if you like this video and subscribe to the channel.